Hey, okay. I know she's on the way. Okay, are you ready? So if you have not already and you want to sign for the hearings, please make sure that you sign up in the back. There should be a sheet for you to, you have it? Okay. So anybody else who wants to sign in? Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order, but we'll allow you to sign in. So, we'll call this meeting to order. It is Thursday, November 7th at 7:03. I am Mayor Beverly H. Burks, and we will call this meeting to order, starting with roll call. Vice Mayor Johnson. Present. Councilwoman Bell.
Present.
Councilman Carroll.
Present.
Councilman Perkins.
Present.
And Councilwoman Hood should be on her way. Are there any updates or changes to the agenda at this time? Okay. Hearing none, the agenda is accepted by common consent. We'll move on to presentations. It was number 3 in administrative business. And item A, which is to approve the following meeting minutes. 10/1/2024 City Council meeting, 10/29 special called City Council meeting, 10/29 City Council work session meeting. So at this time, I'll take a motion for those meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the 10/1/24 council meeting, 10/29/24 special called city council meeting, and 10/29/24 city council work session meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve the following meeting minutes. 10/1 City Council meeting, 10/29 special called City Council meeting, 10/29 City Council work session meeting. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
A motion passed. We'll now have the item 3B, which is to present the proposed fiscal year 2025 operating and enterprise fund budget. And that will be done by the interim city manager, Tammy Sadler-Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Do we have the presentation up? Okay. All right, thank you very much. As the mayor mentioned, we will be presenting the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. My name is Tammy Sadler-Jones, and I serve as the interim city manager. And we will also have Ms. Lolita Grant, who is our finance director. We had our first public hearing on Tuesday, October the 29th, and this is our second required public hearing on tonight, and we are hoping that we will have an adoption of the proposed fiscal year 25 budget. Next slide. The purpose of the city manager's proposed budget, one of the most important policy decisions that the city council makes annually is consideration and adoption of the operating budget. The budget represents the vision of the city council and reflects the needs of the community. The city's fiscal year budget is from January 1st through December 31st, and our budget provides a 12-month map for the staff to follow. Next slide. Just to remind the public, the vision for the City of Clarkston. As a multicultural, diverse community, we aspire to be inclusive and responsive, striving for excellence in everything we do. The mission statement. It is the mission of the City of Clarkston to provide all citizens with cost-effective services and leadership that is open and responsive to the needs of the community, as well as to work for the benefit of all while developing and ensuring the highest quality of life for all residents. And the city's vision and mission is focused on the following areas, which is what our operating budget is focused on as well: staff development, public safety, economic development, infrastructure, and efficient and effective services. Next slide. Our theme for the fiscal year 25 budget is moving forward together. I will go through just some information here. The City of Clarkston, in case you didn't know, we were incorporated December 12th, 1882. So therefore, this year, we will be celebrating 142 years as a city. We have overcome many challenges, although we do have many opportunities ahead. The windshield is large and provides great vision for the future. The rearview mirror is small, but provides, important perspectives. So my goal is to prevent a budget focused on moving forward together in fiscal year 2025. Next slide. So how did we get here, you might be asking? The journey to the city manager's proposed balanced budget, and I want to repeat, this is a balanced budget. We began with a budget kickoff meeting. That's where the staff, we provided them instructions on the budget process. They were instructed to review operational needs for efficiency and effectiveness in regards to their operations. Staff meetings were held to assess office space and technology needs. As you know, we're going to be moving into a new office space very soon, before the end of the year. The interim city manager, I held 2 meetings with the city council members, along with the finance director. She joined me for those meetings. And we reviewed the operating budget, as well as the community action budget and the American Rescue Plan budget. Meetings were held with staff and the city engineer to discuss the capital improvement, or what we refer to as the CIP budget. We also talked about fleet and technology needs from 2025 through 2030. New initiatives in the budget process required staff to review citywide fees, which we will go over those. We are proposing a new fee schedule, and we made recommendations for changes. Next slide. The proposed fiscal year 2025 budget, it includes a 3% cost of living increase for all eligible city employees to be effective July 1st of 2025. We do include the addition of a city planner. Our planning department currently has just the director, and so due to the amount of work in that particular department, we are recommending a new staff person. And we are also looking at 2 new summer interns that will learn city operations and assist with special projects. We're looking at upgrades to our city parks. We are also looking at transferring 2 existing public works laborer positions over to the Parks and Recreation Department, because that is a brand new department and we currently only have the director in Parks and Recreation. We're looking at doing some upgrades to our roads and our sidewalks, purchasing new police cars and equipment, and of course doing some technology, much needed technology upgrades as far as our city operations. New key city initiatives to move the city forward. Again, we're going to be focusing on public safety infrastructure enhancements, police cars and equipment, future city facilities. We need to do a master plan. As I mentioned, we are moving to a new facility that we're going to be renting, but we do need to start planning as far as a new city hall, police station, and things of that sort. So we have money included for that purpose. And of course, the last thing that's mentioned here, we have money allocated in the community action budget to do a grant allocation where we would encourage our nonprofit organizations and those organizations that assist our residents here in Clarkston to apply for a grant from the City of Clarkston to do those programs. And at this time, I'm going to turn the next few slides over to Lolita Grant.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Citywide expenditures is budgeted for FY 2025 at $15.3 million. 66% of that is made up from the general fund. 18% is SPLOST. 9% is grant funds. 2% is stormwater expenditures. 2% is also for our sanitation department. And we have federal seizure funds at little under 1%. Next slide. General fund proposed budget expenditures for 2025. The total budget is $10,181,109. Administration makes up 24.3% of the general fund budget. It makes up 16.14% of the overall budget expenditures for the citywide expenditures, I'm sorry. Police makes up 31.35% of the budget for general fund and 20.78% of citywide expenditures. Public Works make up 12.95% of the general fund budget and 8.58% of overall expenditures for the city. Our other funds include this community action budget. I'm sorry, I'll go down the line. Building and grounds is at 6.9% of general fund budget and 4% of the citywide budget. Parks makes up 4.34% or 2.8% of citywide expenditures. Planning and zoning makes up 8.3% or 5.5% of citywide expenditures. Community action budget is 1.56% or 1.3% of the budget. Overall, the general fund makes up 66.27% of total citywide expenditures. Next page. Other funds, we have the federal seizure fund that makes up 19% of the overall citywide budget expenditures. We have the grant fund, which makes up 8.5%. ARPA funds make up 2.4%. SPLOST 2 makes up 17.7% of the budget. Stormwater makes up 2.17% of the budget, and sanitation makes up 2.33% of the budget. And all of these funds, but most of these other funds are restricted funds. The general fund you can use for general operations. Next slide. Citywide revenues are budgeted at $15,356,678. The budget is based on revenues, not expenditures. Okay. Citywide revenues will exceed expenditures by $4,402. This is considered a balanced budget. Next slide. The general fund revenue budget makes up, as I said, over 66% of the budget. Property taxes makes up over 79% of general fund operations. So you have property taxes is budgeted at $6.6 million. That's an increase of $652,340 over last year. We are looking at our next largest source of revenue is our insurance premium, which makes up 13% of our revenues, and that's $1,359,600. And the other funds are just fees and expenses and taxes. And we also have our court fund. Our court department makes up 2.65% of our budget. Next slide. Other revenues, most of these are restricted funds, as I said before. They're made up of our grant funds, our ARPA funds, our SPLOST, stormwater, and sanitation funds. Next slide.
Public infrastructure enhancements, next slide. That comes through our SPLOST II. The SPLOST II referendum was approved in the November 7, 2023 election. The City of Clarkston is expected to receive $17,245,978 over the next 6 years. The City Manager's Office will propose, budget amendments as we develop more finite plans for our SPLOST II categories. The council approved the categories, but we didn't approve the specific projects under those categories. So that's something that we will need to do. To date, SPLOST II collections are at $1,544,862. And that's done through an accrued basis. Next slide. As I mentioned, our SPLOST II allocations are done by categories. The categories are road, street, bridge purposes, including sidewalks and bicycle paths. That makes up 60% of the SPLOST budget. Cultural facilities, recreational facilities, or historic facilities makes up 20% of the budget. The administrative offices, courthouse, civic center, these are the specific categories as defined in the SPLOST II, make up 13% of the expected allocations. And then the final one, public safety facilities, airport facilities, and/or related capital equipment, that makes up 7% of the SPLOST allocations. And again, expected over the 6 years for the City of Clarkston is $17,245,978. Next slide. New personnel recommendations. Next slide, please. For fiscal year '25, I did want to mention that we are recommending a class and comp study. We actually did an RFP, and we received some responses back to that RFP. We have awarded that bid. We actually had a kickoff meeting last week with our staff, and that RFP came in at about $21,000, which is under the city manager's spending authority. So we're able to pay a portion of that, and then for this fiscal year and the remaining fiscal year, we will owe about $8,000 to that vendor. So that is the reason why you see that line item listed. Key new staff, and again, these are brand new positions that we are recommending. And as I mentioned earlier, we're recommending 1 full-time planner in the Planning and Economic Development Department and 2 summer interns. And this amount that you see, $101,352, includes the salary and benefits for the full-time planner, but only the salaries for the summer interns, because they will only be working during the summertime, for a total of $109,352. Our next slide, our new administrative office building, which is located at 736 Park North Blvd. Next slide. For the purposes of that building, we are hoping to be in that building by the end of this calendar year. We are planning to hopefully do initial expenses and purchases for that building this current year. But when you're moving into a new building, you may not necessarily remember everything. So we want to have a contingency set up for that purpose. So we have $50,000 for any unforeseen building or maintenance type expenses, equipment that we may have to buy. We do have money allocated for our annual lease payment. The lease is for 5 years. And we will begin to pay that lease, even though in good faith we started paying, and then we found out that we didn't have to pay because we had not taken possession of the building. So we do have a credit, but we will, once we take possession of the building, then we will begin paying the lease payments. And then, of course, for information technology purposes, we wanted to allocate $135,000 in case technology things that we have to address going to the new building. for a total of $575,000. Next slide. Other key programs and initiatives that I wanted to bring to your attention. Next slide. City programs and services, digitization, can't talk tonight, initiative. We wanted to do 15,000. We have a lot of paper at the City of Clarkston, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to scan and digitize our documents. So we want to do that. We had planned to do that this fiscal year, but we weren't able to meet that goal. So we wanted to go ahead and have money in the budget for next year. The city annexation study, this was a topic that came up during our retreat back in March of this year. So we wanted to allocate $20,000 for that purpose. Our city, we don't currently have a strategic plan. We have a comprehensive plan. So I wanted to allocate $30,000 to do a strategic plan, which you all will get an opportunity to be a part of that process. The community action budget, as we mentioned earlier, we're looking at primarily making that budget consist of a grant for nonprofit organizations to apply to the city. That amount totals up to $173,000. $58,000 for Clarkston special events, and our special events are our City Council swearing-in ceremony, Milam Park Pool opening day, Juneteenth, movies in Milam Park, our back-to-school program, our National Night Out actually comes out of our police budget, our fall Trunk or Treat Festival, our Faith in Blue, which is also a police item event. I mentioned Trunk or Treat. I meant earlier, Fall Food Festival, pardon me. And then our Veterans Day recognition, our Christmas tree lighting festival, and then we're looking at adding 2 additional events, the mayor's existing Tots Town Hall event and an international rice festival. We are also looking at including a festival that highlights the culture here in the City of Clarkston. And so that amount that you see for special events totals about $58,000. We also included in that $173,000, $15,000 for the Clarkston Community Center. The city, in the past, we have used that facility to host city meetings or events. Also, the community, nonprofit organizations, if they desire to have events, they can apply to the city to get their fees waived, and it comes out of that particular pot of money. And so we are looking at reducing that amount from $20,000 to $15,000, because when we move into our facility over at 736 Park North, we have a very nice sized meeting space where particularly the city, we may not have to go to the community center because we can have our meetings at our venue. And even when the city, we hold events at the community center, that amount is taken or deducted from the $20,000 that we give to them. So we're looking at reducing that to $15,000. And then we're looking at creating a brand new program, the grant program that I mentioned earlier, where a nonprofit organization, if they desire to provide a service to our residents here in Clarkston, they could apply to the city and receive funds up to a certain amount. We will have to put together what that grant application will look like, what that cycle will be, and so that will be something new that we will be doing this year. So that $100,000 is included in that $173,000. Also, going back to our list, financial advisory services, we use a company to assist us with financial services. We're looking at $20,000 for that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, facilities master plan. We need to address the needs for a future permanent City Hall facility, and so we're allocating $25,000 for that. So for that brings the total to $283,000. Next slide. So we know we've said a lot, but the next steps are, as I mentioned earlier when I began the presentation, we held our first budget public hearing on October the 29th. And we received comments and feedback from our staff and our elected officials. And so we're at step number 4, which is our additional public hearing, a required public hearing, which is our second public hearing, which is being held right now, or will be held tonight, pardon me. And then we're hoping that we have a budget adoption on tonight as well. So with that said, I want to, next slide please. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present a balanced budget focused on moving our city forward together in fiscal year 25. I want to particularly thank Ms. Lolita Grant. She started with us back in September and she jumped right in and helped me get the budget done. So I want to thank her and also thank Ms. Keisha Dixon in my office. So, Mayor, if you all have any questions for us, we'll be glad to address those.
Okay, and thank you all again for putting this comprehensive budget together along with the fees as well. So, Council, are there any questions?
Oh, she got to do the fee schedule.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. You want to do both together?
You want to do the
both?
fee? Go ahead and do the fee schedule.
We can.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do the fee schedule.
I'll make it quick, really quick.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So the fee schedule, basically, this is something new for this year, and we've put together FY24 current fees, and you have a column for FY25 fees. I've set this up so that you will be able to look at the fees by departments, and so that's highlighted. There's a total of how many pages? 27 pages, so I won't go over all of them. I will just say, if you're looking to look at City Clerk's office, those fees are there that include the alcohol and beverage catering fees, business license fees. Then we have courts. I'm going to go to page 2, which has courts listed. Courts they're statutory by nature, and it goes all the way from page 2 to page... to page 16. Again, those are statutory in nature. The state mandates those fees. Park and recreation fees are listed on page 16. And what I would highlight there is a pass for those that go to the pool. There's a family pass that you could obtain. The fees for our activities, they're arranged. We have not had those activities such as soccer, baseball, flag ball. We didn't have those fees last year, but we do have them this year in the proposed fees. But this is a new program, so those proposed fees are listed. Planning and zoning, there's quite a few pages for that. Anything that's, if you're looking to see if there's been a change, you compare 2024 to 2025. That's basically all we have on the fees.
Hey, Lolita, would you like to, can you highlight the CIP and also the ARPA?
Oh, the ARPA fund too, okay. The ARPA fund is in your budget book. It's on page, you want just the entire thing. The ARPA fund is in your budget book. It's on page, I'm sorry, wasn't prepared for that one. So let me, it's on page 52 in your budget book. And so if you go and look at those ARPA expenses, the ARPA funds expire. In 2026 is when the funds have to be expended. However, you have to obligate them by December 31st. That does not mean you have to, there's a budget, it's not just budgeting those funds, you have to have a contract. They have to be obligated by a contract. It has to be contractual in nature. So those funds must be obligated, otherwise those funds will go back if they're not obligated by December 31st. So if you look at your page 52, you will note that We have the budget, what we spent for 2023, 2024, and we have expenses taking us out to 2025. So for 2024, the total budget amount is $434,874 for 2025, I'm sorry. And we have only $92,168 that will be carried over to 2026. And most of those expenses are for salaries, budgeted positions that we have. And it also includes grant writer. And though some of those positions for ARPA, they include police, they include finance, they include, I've got a list of them, I'm sorry, I hit that list, bear with me one second. I can't spread out over here, otherwise I would have it available. So I'm flipping stuff, so just bear with me one second.
So would that be the code enforcement officer, the finance, the accountant,
That's all of those positions.
the equity officer, and the social worker?
Yes, ma'am, those
And
are
the
the positions.
assistants,
So you
okay,
have
all
that,
right,
you have that list in front of you, okay?
No, I just memorized it, that's all.
I'm sorry. So that's what we have. That's all. That's on that budget. And we have the CIP budget that was posted on the website as well. That budget was over $30 million. It identified sources. I think there was just one area of concern, and that is a project that had to be approved, and we must adopt the use and the projects that will be used with SPLOST funds. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, so, and that concludes your both sections, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Questions, Councilwoman Hood? Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Johnson.
My question is for Ms. Tammy. We have a spreadsheet here of the Community Action Project budget, the $173,000, and we're getting, can you explain to the community why certain things are not showing up in the 2025 proposed budget, and it's in the 173 and others are on the spreadsheet?
Trying to make sure I understand your question.
Yes, on this spreadsheet, we have 58,000 for Clarkston special events.
Yes,
We have 10,000 for the Clarkston Community Center for venue rental.
15,000.
15, I'm sorry. And then we have the 100 for the new revolving grant program.
Yes.
Some people want to know why certain things made the list and certain things didn't.
Okay.
Basically explaining the new program, I think.
Yes, okay. So, for example, the Tell Me a Story event and the Early Learning Task Force, those are two, I guess, organizations where the city, we have funded that organization in the past. However, the recommendation would be that this organization, for those two specific events, or even for something else they would like to do, they would be able to apply to the city and receive funding after, of course, their application is evaluated to determine whether or not they would be able to get a grant from the city out of the $100,000. I will say, for example, the Tell Me a Story event, which only gets $7,000, depending upon how we do the program, we may take applications for grants up to $15,000. And so they may be eligible to get more this year than they were in the past. The other line items that were included, for example, going back to the very first one, urban agriculture and environmental projects. The budget for this year was $10,000. We are not recommending that that be funded because it has not been used since it was initially approved in 2020. I mentioned the Tell Me a Story. The recreational programs that were funded at $10,000 this year, we're recommending that that be moved to Parks and Recreation now that we have a Parks and Recreation department. I mentioned the community center already. The Clarkston Community Cultural Festival, that organization that puts on that event, they had a budget of $3,500. It wasn't used this year, and if I'm not mistaken, it may not have been used on last year. So we're recommending that that be removed. And as I mentioned earlier, the city, we can put on some type of cultural event to recognize the different backgrounds and that we have here in our city. We are, one of the most diverse cities, and I think we should celebrate that. The public arts program, you'll notice it was initially funded at $10,000. We did use a portion of that, but we're recommending that that be moved to the Economic Development Department. The business economic development programs, we had $25,000 in that line item. We did use some of that. Our billboard that you see on 285 promoting our city and marketing our city, we use that line item for that purpose, and so we're recommending that that line item be removed from the community action budget and be moved to planning and zoning budget. I mentioned the grant fund, the senior programs. We have not used that. We have not used the health task force, and we have not used this year the youth task force. And so we're recommending that all of those three also be removed from the community action budget. And again, if there are specific organizations that would like to have events or services for these specific areas, they can apply to the grant program that we're recommending for the community action budget. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Now, do we have those guidelines and qualifications? For instance, if someone was receiving, and I hope Ms. Melavinda is not here. For instance, Tell Me a Story.
Mm-hmm.
She's been doing this for years.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to have to apply with the city to continue this event and get approved.
Yes.
I guess my concern is the approval process, because these two things have gone on in this city for quite some time. So it's not that she can actually get denied for these things.
She could,
Okay.
but I mean, of course, all applications will be evaluated and determined on a basis. We have not come up with a application. We didn't want to be presumptuous that the council was going to go along with this recommendation, so that's why we don't have a application process to bring forth to you. But if this is approved, we would immediately start that process, because we know that some of these organizations may have events in the spring, so we need to go ahead and have that application prepared for them. However, this is all based upon fairness, and we didn't want to necessarily cherry pick which organizations that we were going to fund and which organizations we were not going to fund. So as a city, we just wanted to be fair, and we thought that the grant application process would be the best approach to take.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Hood.
Yes, I have a couple of questions just to follow up to Councilmember Johnson. So who will be doing the evaluation?
We don't know what that looks like yet, but based upon other application processes that I've gone through working in local government, we may put together a committee. It could be staff committees that would look at the applications and make a recommendation on approvals.
Would the community have any input to that?
We could very well have a community member on the application process, but again, we didn't move forward until we knew that this is what the direction of the council you wanted to go.
All right, I have two more questions, if I
Okay.
may, Mayor.
All right.
One of
And we
them-
do have some of our staff here, so if I can't answer the question, they'll help me.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about the fees, the Parks and Recreation fees, and you know
Okay.
I've brought this
So come on up, Michael.
twice
Mr.
before.
Duncan. Thank you.
I
Which
still
page are you on?
I am on page 14.
Okay.
The heading, first heading on that sheet is pool fees, and I believe that's the beginning of it. I may be wrong, but it goes through pool fees, pavilion rental, women's club fees, and sports programs. I would wish that we would not raise the fees to go to the swimming pool. I realize those are minimal, but a number of our residents have many children, and they have to be accompanied by adults. As I've said before, I don't believe that our recreation programs have to break even. I think it is appropriate for our overall budget to supplement the costs of recreation programs. I'm particularly concerned about the sports programs in two ways. I would hope when it lists soccer that would include boys soccer and girls soccer. Same thing for baseball or basketball, that we would allow the young girls who, thank goodness, now can function under Title IX, and we see how Title IX has made us world famous in women's sports. But I'm especially concerned about the fee of $50. That is, I believe, too high for many, many of our residents. And I would like to see that number reduced. We are not a wealthy community. That $50 may be nothing to somebody in Dunwoody, but in Clarkston, that closes the door. So I just make that comment. The other thing I would like to ask about is my concern about the large increase in our administrative budget. And from 2000, the personnel costs for our administrative services salaries in 2023 was a little over $500,000. Projected now is pretty much twice that in 2 years, over $1 million in salaries. And that doesn't include insurance and benefits and that sort of thing. We just cannot continue with this rate of spending. I realize that we're projecting for our tax digest to increase, but there comes a point that we can't continue to burden our citizens with this level of spending. I noticed all of those special studies that we're projecting for next year. Yes, they're needed, but again, we've got to tighten our belt. This is really important to the citizens. I'm very concerned about this. Okay. And let me just end there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you. I just have a question in regards to the ARPA grant fund expenditures. And Ms. Lolita, you might be able to answer this. When I did the calculations for the 2026 proposed budget, my calculations, and maybe they're off because there's something missing in the spreadsheet, but it's a little over $187,000 that's still left, but the document here says it's only be $92,168. And you can do the calculations later, but something is missing either on the spreadsheet or something that I didn't calculate, because I did it 3 times. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Carroll?
I mean, the only thing I'll say is that I understand the move to the grant, and I do think that's a positive move. I would just say that we have to, if we're going to apply the grant, I think we need to apply it evenly for all the funding. Because there are, worthy programs, Tell Me a Story, the Early Learning Task Force that have been using their money. There's other programs that haven't been using their money, and I think it's appropriate to move them to grant. But I just think, it's not good to exclude certain programs like Community Center that, it may also be worthy, just like Tell Me a Story is worthy, but I don't see a reason to allocate funding to one worthy program and make the other one apply for grants.
Okay. So you're saying you want to be...
I think we just need to be even across the board. And that even policy across the board could be, if they have been actually using their money each year, they get a grant. If they haven't actually using the money, get the funding allocated. If they don't, it goes to grants. That's one way to be even. Another way is just say everything goes to grants and they have to compete. But it's not fair to say this one program gets the funding allocated and everyone else, even if they've been using their money, has to apply for grants. I think that's not fair. So I think we just need to be across the board. I'd be fine either way across the board, but I don't think we can make exceptions.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell?
I'll be brief. I agree with that process. We need to have an equitable process where everybody just applies and we have criteria. But we also need to ensure that we have deliverables for how the funds were used and the impact. And we discussed that before during retreat as well as in this council chamber.
Amen. So yes, we need to make sure in terms of that overall process, I think it would be beneficial for us as a council to see what that looks like, how long it's going to be, because many of the organizations, this is new to them, and they weren't thinking that we would do this, and so they're not financially prepared for this since we didn't really, broadcast this out. So in terms of mid-year, like, if you've been getting $7,000 every year, and then now all of a sudden you're saying you got to go through a grant process, that's a little shocking to your financial systems here. So it would be very important for us, whatever that process is that we can make sure that it's done at least by January. Is that what your timeline? I think that would help us to understand what the timeline is for
Yes,
this.
so, if we're getting an approval, then immediately we would start working on the application to come back to you guys to share what that application process would look like.
Okay.
But I know, Mayor, many of these organizations, they're used to applying for grants, so I hope that this wouldn't be out of the norm for them, but I do understand that they wouldn't be used to applying to the City of Clarkston because they are used to getting the funding from the city each year.
Okay. And then the other question I had as far as the ARPA funding, which positions have been moved from ARPA to the general account?
So right now, the two positions are the executive assistant position in the city manager's office and our accountant. We would like to also look at changing over our diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. However, I do want the council to note, if you had a chance to look at the payroll budget, that the DEI officer is funded through 26. The accountant is only funded through 2025.
Okay.
And that's just based upon funding. But we do have at least 3 other positions that are ARPA funded: our code enforcement officer, our, help me out here, Lolita, our social worker, and our grants position, which is a consultant position. So we will have to come back with a plan of how we're going to transition those positions, if that is the will of this council, that we keep those positions in our city operations.
But the other 2, is this when we're talking about it now? Because,
Yeah, we can.
okay, because I want to make sure those other 2, that as a council we're talking about it, and then we'll do the same for the equity officer, because I just want to make sure that's something that as a whole we talk about that as well, transitioning over, because until I said that, I don't think everyone knew that those 2 were going to be transitioned over. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear for the entire council, and that our role in terms of transitioning those roles from ARPA to Okay.
And I will like to add, Mayor, that out of the accountant and the DEI officer, the DEI officer would be first priority, and then the accountant would be second priority, including the executive assistant to the city manager's office.
Okay, and can I make a comment? Remember, we have to obligate the funds by
Right.
December 31st, so we have to have people in position. So if we move them, we have to have someone else there that we have to sign a contract with right away. Those funds have to be expended, otherwise they go back.
Okay. So they have to be expended from a salary if we've already allocated those as salary positions.
No, you can change it right now, as long as they follow the guidelines, the spending guidelines, but they have to be obligated. So if you move someone out of the ARPA funds, then you put them over in general funds. General funds, we have to find funding for those additional positions.
Right.
And then if whatever we're going to do with what we're not going to spend with our funds, then we need to find something obligated with a contract, and it has to be done. They're saying December 31st, but what they've done in the past, they've had us report even sooner than that.
Right,
So
right.
time is going to be of the essence at this point.
Okay. Okay, so is that the goal, since you said that at least the 3 positions have to be, we have funding allocated for those 3 positions?
Yes,
Till
ma'am.
2026?
Yes, ma'am.
And so,
Well, for 2 of, the only position that won't be funded in 2026 is the inclusion, the DEI position.
okay. And so the social intervention officer ends in 2025 or
Yes, 2025, yes, ma'am.
Okay. 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 Any other comments? Okay. No comments? All right, we'll close that out. Thank you again, staff, for providing all that information for us. We'll move now to our reports, and then we will have the public hearing. And again, thank you for, council, for your input and questions. So with that, we will start with the Parks and Recreation report. Mr. Duncan, come on back up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Just want to give you a report of, excuse me, of the Parks and Recreation. So I want to start off with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I know there's been a lot of conversation about that recently. We're in the final phases of putting that together, and so I'm hoping we'll just shoot for the end of this month, that will be out for bid. So we're just putting the final touches, but I want to make sure that everybody understands the Park and Recreation Master Plan covers everything under Parks and Rec. And I think some people think it might only cover one item or one park. It covers all of our parks. So it's a complete master plan from A to Z. So that's programs, staffing, salary, all of our parks, our 4 pocket parks, the women's club, swimming pool, et cetera, et cetera. So that, we hope to have that completed by the end of November and out for bid. I came before y'all a few months ago, and we were talking about the grant for the field lights. And we were proud to report that we have been awarded the grant. It's a $100,000 matching grant from the Georgia 100 Pitch Arthur Blank Foundation. So we were awarded that grant. So we'll be getting $100,000 from the grant, and then the city will match the other $100,000. So we're in the process now of doing all the paperwork, and hopefully we'll have everything finalized within the next few weeks, and then we'll be able to share the plans with the council. GRPA, we are officially members of the GRPA. I'm excited about that. And the biggest thing with GRPA is the grant opportunities. That's what I'm looking forward to, is the grant opportunities. But we have park maintenance plans out of GRPA, professional development, networking. So there's a lot of benefits that we will have being a members of GRPA. The Atlanta United Football Club, I came before you with them when they wanted to do their free clinics and they received the grant to do that. Now, we are talking now to continue that partnership. Their grants will end, but the Atlanta United Football Club wants to continue, and I guess they will fund the program, but they want to stay in the Clarkston community. So we're looking to have their next session in March. And so I'll come back to the council when we get more details. And then the last thing I want to present to you, just going back to what Councilwoman Susan Hood has mentioned, with our programs, we are working right now, and we have identified grants to help fund programs in our Parks and Recreation program. So the $50 that's in the fees are the cheapest fees you're going to find for the Parks and Rec programming. So if you look at surrounding cities, just Tucker and Decatur, their fees for soccer is over $125. And so I wanted to start off low. That's why we started off at $50. But we're also identifying grants to help families pay for the fees. So, matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow that will discuss more about grant opportunities for our community. So we're starting off low, but we also going to have assistance for anybody who needs it.
Okay. Is that it?
That's
Oh,
it.
that's
So,
great. That's great
yeah.
news for our parks. So we'll start off with some questions. And Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Michael, for your report. Can you let us know if 40 Oaks is, I just need people to hear you say, 40 Oaks is a part of that comprehensive plan that you're working on?
Yes, so 40 Oaks is part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and everything in 40 Oaks.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
so much
Thank
and
you.
welcome aboard, and thank you for all you're doing with the parks. We'll now move to the interim city manager's report with Tammy Sadler-Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to start off by introducing our interim staff that are managing our Planning and Economic Development Department. Rebecca Kiefer. Rebecca is walking over to the podium, and also Richard Edwards. Many of you may not know, but Lisa Cameron is no longer employed with the City of Clarkston as our Planning and Economic Development Director. And so I have these two individuals that have come on board and doing a good job in the last few days. So I just wanted them to get an opportunity to say hello to you very quickly.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Rebecca Kiefer. I am with CPL. Rich and I are both with CPL. We are a full-service architecture, engineering, planning firm. And we come to you to kind of assist during this time of transition, just so that you're able to conduct kind of a meaningful, unrushed recruitment process for this key position. And so we're here to assist and happy to help.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to encourage the public to please check out our website for any of our upcoming city events, clarkstonga.gov, and hopefully you got a chance to check out our fall newsletter that came out on October the 31st, so now you are more informed about what's going on here in the city of Clarkston. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, if you are interested in applying for the Business of the Month, I think I'm saying that right, please contact Jacob Bowie, our Economic Development Coordinator. And then Jacob also wanted me to share with you that an organization called Legacy Harvest Foundation, they have some financial resources available. Rent and utility applications are open November 1st through November the 27th, up to $500 for rent and utility assistance. Residents here in DeKalb County are eligible, and to apply, you need to go to legacyharvest.org. So if you know anyone in need, please pass along that information to them. And the phone number to contact for more information is 470-375-2993. I'll repeat that, 470-375-2993. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Hearing none, we will. Councilwoman Hood.
Yes, a question and a comment. Comment first. I loved the newsletter, and just want to repeat that. Is the legacy harvest information on our website?
I just got it today. I'm not sure if it's on our website. I just got it today, so we will make sure that we push it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney's a report.
No report this evening, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move to council remarks, starting with Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On October the 21st, I had the pleasure of co-hosting the first annual Survivor Summit for Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness at the Clarkston Community Center. On the 26th of October, I attended the Breast and Domestic Violence Awareness Walk and Festival with Christ Community Church. After that, we went down Market and we did Trunk or Treat, which was awesome, by the way. Thank you. That's your 8th annual Trunk or Treat event. It was really nice. And I would like to thank the police, the staff, everybody did an awesome job, as well as the community. Just to reiterate on that Trunk or Treat, we had our police came in second for the actual trunk decoration, and they were very good. So thank you guys for that. And on November the 29th, I was actually invited to the Rockdale County Domestic Violence Awareness Candlelight Vigil. If anybody is aware, my sister was murdered in Rockdale County, so it really meant a lot to me. It was the shortest event ever, but it had so much purpose that I was able to get back to the work session that night. So it was really, really nice. And on Friday, November the 1st, I had the pleasure of attending the ARC State of the Region with the mayor, and we actually got an award that day for the Livable Center Award, and it was really nice. So thanks to Planning and Zoning for their efforts, along with the Greenway feasibility study that we had done. It really has impacted us a lot. So that's my report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Hood.
Thank you. I attended the event that was put on, the Survivor Summit. It was exceptional. And this is the inaugural year. I look forward to this being an annual event, and for the men and women who attend for that audience to increase, because there were staff members and elected officials who spoke to the two issues. So this is not something that is far away. It is right in our homes. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you. So I held the Public Safety and Legal Committee meeting on October 30th. It was a great meeting and lots of great discussion in regards to abatement of property and procedures, citations, and also best practices from other cities, as well as discussion around a moratorium on new business license to help with some of the backlog, but also stop some of the victimization of individuals signing leases before going through our business license process and requirements as a city. And so it's still so much to move forward with all of the information and discussion that we had at that committee meeting. But thank you to the city attorney as well as the city manager on prep before that meeting, so we would make sure that we knew all the viable options. So thank you.
Okay. Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first, I wanted to congratulate our Councilmember-elect Sharifa Ade. I think I see you in the back there. So congratulations. As we all know, it's a lot of work putting on a campaign, especially one that goes for that long. So look forward to working with you when you're sworn in. So I did attend the GMA, Georgia Municipal Association district meetings on October 2nd, and part of that was a training on HB 581, on October 3rd that just passed. So it's something that has a huge impact on city budgets. We have a very limited window to opt in or opt out of that. It also has some implications for property taxes and how those are assessed. So encourage just the public to just read up on it. We have a lot of conversations, I think, and a lot of work ahead of us to figure out whether we want to opt in or opt out of that. And there are long-term, I think we were told, for the duration of the existence of the city, which is a little dramatic, but implications to what decisions we make on that. Also had the pleasure of attending GSU's class with Mr. Dean Moore with HPC and Professor Charles Lawrence with GSU at the 40 Oaks house, just to get a little bit of a perspective on what's possible there, some of the challenges. So thank you to y'all for just the work you're doing out there. And then finally attended the Clarkston Candidate Forum hosted by the Georgia Muslim Voter Project on October 27th. So thank you just to all of you who went out to that. I believe Ms. Ida was there as well. A number of representatives. I think civic engagement is very important. So it was really an honor to be a part of that. And then finally also attended the Public Safety and Legal Standing Advisory Committee on October 30th with Councilmember Bell. And again, we are working pretty hard to figure out, I think a number of committees are working on this issue, ways to address some of the issues that folks in our apartment communities are facing. There's pretty serious issues there. Obviously, it is a long road, as my colleague mentioned. There are a lot of legal implications to it, making sure that we do things right. But it is something we are taking very seriously. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Carroll.
I'd like to join Councilman Perkins in congratulating Councilwoman-elect Shrifade. I know it's hard to run for office. I'd like to just congratulate you for putting effort and look forward to working with you. I had chaired the Housing Infrastructure Committee on October 21st this month, and that committee dealt with essentially the inspections and also the consequences for apartments that are not maintaining their apartments up to code standards. And so we heard a lot of good suggestions from the city staff. There are some good suggestions to the committee as well that I think hopefully we can start moving towards being able to enforce more effectively on these apartments that are not cooperating, that are not, keeping up basic living standards. So I look forward to working with the staff and the community to get those implemented and hopefully start to improving the situation in the apartments. And that's in my report.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll do my mayor's report. I was very fortunate to be selected and finish up my Regional Leadership Institute from the Atlanta Regional Commission. So I did that earlier in October. I attended the Faith in Blue on October 11th. I attended the grand veiling of Shannon Willows, and I see one of our other artist collaborator, Simone, in terms of our wonderful heart exhibit that we have in our pocket park. And if you get a chance to make sure to see that. I attended the African Women's Pack Gala on the 19th, and the city received an award from them. I attended, and I'm also the co-chair for DEI for Leadership DeKalb, and we had our meeting here at the Clarkston Community Center, and so we had a variety of people from our community to help talk about DEI for our leaders in Leadership DeKalb. I'm also and finished up our local leaders housing cohort with the Atlanta Regional Commission. The 8th annual trunk or treat. Again, I want to thank everyone who helped the staff, and key to that was Susie Key, who was really kind of a champion for that, to make that event happen. We had over 400 kids out there that, really enjoyed that opportunity to have a safe place to enjoy trick or treat and fun. We had the 29th, the Voices of Muslim held their candidates forum, and I gave greetings for that. I attended one of the nonprofits, their Chucks and Pearls for Girls events, where I spoke for that. On that same evening, I had several events. I also attended the Voices of Muslims Gala that night. On the 31st, I attended the Zoom call for the North DeKalb Gen X bus network redesign, and that was where we were looking at the changes that they're making to the transportation system. They are going to start having meetings in January to update the community on the opportunities for new bus and other light rail systems that they're going to have, so stay tuned for that. You will see public meetings, and we've asked them, part of the participants were commissioners, state legislators, as well as other mayors, to see how we can make sure in terms of transportation awareness that you have access to that, and to incorporate that during different community events so that you know what the changes that they plan to make from a MARTA and other opportunities for transportation. We both, Vice Mayor Johnson and I, attended the ARC State of the Region, where we received the Regional Excellence Award with the Livable Center for our Greenway Feasibility Study. In addition to that, we also received 2 other awards from the Georgia Planning Association for Outstanding Planning Process and for Outstanding Public Involvement. I also did our final trunk or treat. And so that was our final quarter of trunk or treat with our kids. It was My Voice, My Vote musical edition. And so we had quite a few in terms of our children 5 and under to learn about democracy. And so this concluded 4 of our quarterly activities where we allowed our children to learn about government, to hear from elected officials, to incorporate literacy. And with that, I also participated with the mayor's reading club for the state of Georgia, and I'm very excited that we potentially will be on the list as a pilot city to receive funding so that we can do additional literacy education for our community. And I spoke at the Drake Academy, where one of our historic preservation, Mr. Walker, Aston Walker School, and so I got to speak to the kids from grades 3 through 5, and I attended the DMA, the DeKalb Municipal Association legislative dinner, where we were able to talk to our legislative members to find out what's their plans for 2025 legislative session. And today I attended the Easter Seals luncheon to learn about all the great things that the Easter Seals plan to do and continue to do for our children. And if you don't know, they're located on Church Street, right by our industrial park, and they are doing amazing things in terms of supporting our children and providing partnerships and other things. And that's where we have our Clarkston hub, our Clarkston Health Hub. They provide health screenings there as well. So you'll see many great things, but that concludes my report. And so with that, we will now move into the budget public hearing. And so with that, we will make sure in terms of allocating 30 minutes for the public hearing for people to speak for and against any type of comments for the budget. And so for each set, for the proponents, you will have 15 minutes. For the opponents, you will have 15 minutes. And then if we need additional time with that, we will make sure in terms of breaking that out. And I will have the clerk, Mitchell, to make sure in terms of time, each person will have 3 minutes to speak. Did I need to cover anything else?
No, actually, those particular rules are for zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And so the proponents and opponents doesn't necessarily apply for the budget one.
Okay, but it's still
But
good.
the 3 minutes, everything you
Yeah.
said is fine.
Okay, all right. So anyone would like to speak on this? Yes. And state your name and your address.
Thank you. My name is.
Oh, okay. I'll let you speak, but we have a list.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. I'm on the list for the zoning, but.
Okay.
But okay. So my name is Taylor Brooks. I live at 1024 Pecan. I got 3 comments. The first one is about the budget for the special events. There was a suggestion to maybe change that, but I have another suggestion, which is basically have a transitional year to this kind of grant program. and grandfather in all the ones at their current funding level who have already happened. So let them come in now, reduce the budget for the grant by the amount that they have already, been allocated this year, and give them the same funding level. That's another way forward. For the budget for Parks and Rec, I have a question about the trail. Well, not really a question, but a comment about the trails along the little river there, the South Fork. Those are in the 2040 comprehensive plan, and it'd be great to see those come to fruition, as well as the little park that's supposed to be in that area as well. And then the other thing is there no budget that we can have for development funds to attract businesses to the city, like, tax abatements or something like that? So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else did we have signed up?
Roberta Malavinda, she's on Zoom.
Good evening, and greetings to Ms. Sadler Jones, Mayor Burke, and members of the City Council and attendees. I'm Roberta Malavinda with City of Action, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Tell Me a Story. First, I'd like to say that City of Action is the fiscal agent for a group of partners. This is a collaborative effort sponsored by the city, funded by the city, and always has been a City of Clarkston event, not a CDF event. So I wanted to say that first and foremost. This is our 11th year. We've been in the budget for almost that many years, for about $7,000, and that is what has enabled us to put on this event every year with volunteers, partners, and the City of Clarkston sponsoring it. And a shout out to Yolanda McGee and our City Communications Director, and thank you, Beverly Burke, for giving welcome, and thanks for all the support that we've gotten from the City Council and staff over the years. We are requesting that $7,000 be reinstated into the budget for the annual festival because of the shortness of time. We understand that the $100,000 is a wonderful idea. We support that. We believe it needs to be equitable, and that lots of different organizations need the opportunity to apply. But this is a collaborative effort that is very much like Trunk or Treat or any other city-sponsored event, and we strongly suggest that the funding be restored. It could be added to the special event budget because that's exactly what it is. It is not a new program or a new project, and we really think that it would be a really shame to eliminate this money at this period of time. We understand that there will be an RFP. It may take some time. Everything takes time. We start the planning for the Tell Me a Story in January. CDF cannot allocate any funding to this until we are sure that we have the funding, and it's very possible that we will not be able to do a 2025 Tell Me a Story Festival unless that funding is restored. We have provided a very comprehensive report every year to the City Council with number of attendees and with some impacts. This year we had over 350 people, 25 vendors, and we had it at the Clarkston Community Center. So that is our request, that funding be restored for the Clarkston Tell Me a Story Festival, and we ask the City Council members to make that decision this evening. I would also like to invite you on Thursday, November 14th, to the second annual Early Learning Partner and Department of Early Care and Learning Forum that the city has also sponsored with community action funding for about $1,000. That's going to be held, the second annual will be this Thursday, or a week from Thursday, on the 14th. Last year we had over 60 people that attended, that learned about how to navigate early learning in Georgia. And it was very well attended with surveys and feedback that we have shared with you. So that's the end of my presentation, and I really hope that you will decide to add the $7,000 back into the budget for the 2025 City of Clarkston Tell Me a Story.
Okay, thank you, Roberta.
Glad to answer any questions.
It's just public comments at this time, so thank you. And then we'll move to the next person.
Louis Sammy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Louis Sami, and I'm the Executive Director at the Clarkston Community Center. My comment is about the budget for 2025. The previous year, the Clarkston Community Center received $20,000 for a service agreement for events and City Hall meetings. And today, actually, I sent an email asking for an increase on the budget because the amount of events and services have been denied in 2024 was a lot, and was strictly denied based on numbers, on funds. And the center had to absorb some of these events because there's high need, such as health fairs, job fairs, and all of that. So I requested $25,000 to hear the budget being dropped to $15,000 without us knowing or have any really say so in it. And also for Tell Me Story event is kind of really hurt me to hear that, because this is something been going on in Clarkston for so many years, and it's not easy to get birth to event that's successful, bring community together, and not to provide with stability. It takes a lot. It takes a year for the planning to happen, and to go into it not know if you will get the funds or not, it doesn't give any support to these organizations. They're a nonprofit. They're stretched really thin and trying to make it happen for the city of Clarkston. At the end of the day, all the credit all these organizations doing come back to this room. So I really hope you reconsider the funds for 2025 for $25,000 to be able to cover more events. We know we're going toward really difficult year, and will be definitely high demand on services like the services and programs the Clarkston Community Center offer. And I don't see a lot of the international community represented in the room today, so I'm the voice for them today. And I'm telling you, a lot of them are really disappointed when a lot of events that have been rejected strictly based on numbers. So hopefully we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Chris Becker.
You good? Okay. Who's next?
That's all I have signed up for the public hearing.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, Mean Dean, come on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dean Moore, Rayford Trail. Both these groups, the Tell Me a Story and the Community Center, we've had an MOU with the Community Center since 2010. And it was the same amount in 2010 that it was last year. This year it's dropping down, and as Sammy presented, there are a lot of extra events that he's putting on that really helps community. Tell Me a Story, all Roberta's done with the Ready School, and those contributions to the community. I really encourage the council to consider maintaining this funding for the community. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? Hearing none, we will. Yes.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I just want to really back that idea of grandfathering the organizations, and also looking at what Sammy has asked, which is increasing that budget to 25, because I think the work that the community center does is really center at providing the community an access to a space. And like he said, a lot of the international community is not here, but that's an access point. The community center is an access point. But also Tell Me a Story, I think is a great organization. It has been here doing that work for such a long time. And I think it's gonna really impact the children and the work that Roberta has been committed to for a very, very long time in this city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll let everyone speak. So with that, I will close out the budget public hearing. So with that, we will move into public comments. And so let me also point this out. If you're planning to speak about the hearings on those 3 different topics, you don't have to talk about it during the public comment section. I just want to make sure you're covered. Duplicating efforts, so I want to make sure. So any member of the public may address the council during the time allocated for public comments. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 40 minutes and is not a time for dialogue. If your public comment contains a series of questions, please submit those to the city clerk in writing. This will facilitate follow-up by the council or staff. The city council desires to allow an opportunity for public comment. However, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. Who do we have signed up first? Clerk Mitchell.
John Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is John Carr. I'm actually from Tucker, and so I'm here in an individual capacity, but I'm also here as a member of the extended Sutton family to talk about 40 Oaks. I have been amazed in the last few months as I have watched the deliberations by council and all of the grassroots involvement in work being done to reach some solution around the preservation of the 40 Oaks farmhouse. And Councilman Perkins has already talked about the work the GSU is doing. Councilwoman Johnson has talked about the inclusion of the farmhouse property in the Parks and Rec master plan considerations. But on top of that, you have a Friends of 40 Oaks nonprofit that's come together to raise funds. You have the potential for listing on the National Historic Registry, which would give you grant access as well as state funding access. You have indications that we could get certified as a local government status, or the city could, and in doing so you have more grant access. And so I would ask the council that, given the fact that we need to mothball the property, we don't need to make that decision today. But what we do need to do is not lose an asset, because if we're going to include it in consideration for Parks and Rec's master plan, then we need to table the demolition discussion and look at this as a very long-term project over multiple years with multiple decision points. And so rather than making a one-time decision today, you progress through this question at various decision points and decide whether to move forward or not. I would simply ask the committee's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else did we have signed up?
Charity Becker.
And then who's the next person?
That's all I have for
Okay.
public comments. The rest is for zoning.
Charity Becker. I'm nervous to be up here, and I'm surprised by that, so you'll forgive me if I am having a hard time collecting my thoughts. The only comment that I had at this time was that I am the 5th generation of my family that's been in Clarkston. My grandfather was on the city council for I don't know how long, so I do have some unique insights as to things that have worked, things that haven't worked. My grandmother's still alive. She still talks to me. She still asks me about you guys' work. And as a whole, I am very thrilled by how open you are to listen to our comments. I can feel that, and it makes me really happy because I know there's times where I haven't felt heard, so I appreciate you for that. So really it is just thanks for trying to come together, and if there's any way I can help fill in any information or questions that you guys might have about history of Clarkston or things that have worked anything like that, I have some resources. So.
All right, thank you. Dean?
Madam Mayor, Dean Moore, Rayford Trail, and Chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission. I want to thank you and your team in advance for your interest in preserving the 40 Oaks House and the 40 Oaks Nature Preserve. This past Monday, we finished up our final class with the Georgia State University students. I had to have the police out because there apparently was a homeless person who had taken up residence since the last time we were in there through a broken window and plywood that was down. And before I left that evening, Public Works was there. I want to thank Marcus and his helpers for getting that up. And I want to thank the chief and the police officers that came out to make sure that the homeless person wasn't in there ready to jump out of the closets at the students. So they made it safe for us. And they should be making a report. I believe they're going to make a report for us to review. But I want to thank you in advance for your wisdom and your generosity and your understanding that the Sutton family, and particularly Hazel, I believe it is, that provided that property in that house as a gift to the community, that we will never see another gift like that because there's nothing like that in the city. And that house was built around 1880. And want to thank Edna Hensler for her help in providing us with information and some of the documents that she has. A few years ago when we first started getting the Historic Preservation Commission up. And as Mr. Carr had mentioned, we're positioned to go ahead and file for the certified local government so we can start declaring this a historic property and getting grants and things like that. And he wisely understands that this is a long-term project, and we'd like to get to it as soon as possible to make sure that we protect that house. So thank you again.
Okay. All right, thank you. So with that, we will close out our public comments, and we'll move to old business, which is a nice transition, which will be 7A, which is to consider a resolution awarding a contract to the most responsive and reasonable bidder, Southern Demolition, LLC, for the demolition of the two-story house at 40 Oaks Nature Preserve in the amount of $39,750 to be funded out of the SPLOST II Fund. And Mr. Moody, I know.
Yeah, sort of slid up. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just looking for approval from the ITB for the demolition of the two-story parcel at 40 Oaks to Southern Demolition for $39,750.
Okay. And at this time, I will take a motion from the council, whether to do it or not to do it. So let me make sure so everyone's clear. So if we did not want to demolish the building, or if we wanted to come back and look at doing the addendums to the building, we would have to deny this application, this contract, and then you would have to turn around and do another bid. Is that correct?
If this was denied for full demolition, we would have to reject all bids and then at a later time go out and do it for any modifications to side structures or whatever.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that was clear. So I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move to cancel the demo or not accept the demo request for, I can't find it, but, hold on one second. I move to cancel the resolution awarding a contract to the most responsive bidder, which was Southern Demo LLC, for the demolition of the two-story house at 40 Oaks Nature Preserve in the amount of $39,750 that will not be funded out of SPLOST.
Okay. So should she say cancel or should she say disapprove? I just want to make sure to get the right word. Just for
I think it's not cancel, I guess, because we don't have a contract currently. Maybe reject or reject all bids.
Okay. So Vice Mayor, if you redo that, just want to make sure for the record to get it right.
I move to reject all bids for demolition for 40 Oaks Nature Preserve.
Okay, that's it. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to reject all bids for the demolition of 40 Oaks Nature Preserve. Is there any further discussion?
Plan to demolish the extensions. So I'm guessing we reject that, and then we ask to come back to just have the extensions demolished. Is that right?
Right.
Yes, my understanding, I think it's going to be a part of the master plan. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
So then my question is, do we need to move forward with this motion or with the recommendation that my council colleagues have just made? You hear them?
Well, I think that, I don't know if mine's working, but that would be a whole nother bid because it's so different from what the bids we've received are. So that's something that the staff can do. It's not on the agenda tonight. You know, the staff went out and got these bids because they understood that that's what y'all wanted to do at the time. And so the staff, now having the understanding of what you want to do that's different, can go out and get those bids, and it'll bring that to you as an action item later.
Yes.
But I guess my question, Stephen, is does that need to be made in the motion? Is it just the council of this bid as a whole? Because it doesn't prepare the staff to then move forward with going back out for another RFP if we choose to move forward? Or are there two different motions?
Well, the staff does not need a council vote in order to put out an RFP. Obviously, they don't want to advertise contracts that aren't desired and won't be approved, but that formality is not necessary.
Okay. All right, Vice Mayor Johnson.
Basically, I wanted to ask you, Stephen, do I need to reject this particular bid for this particular service? Or what I did was okay?
I think what you did was perfect, Madam Vice Mayor.
All right. So you ready, Councilman Perkins?
So just for the sake of, for our staff's sake, are we wanting to direct them to go ahead and put out an RFP, for partial demolition now, or does that need to come after we get the responsive bids to our parks master plan? So, because I know there's been a number of different discussions, I just want to make sure, I know we have a motion on the table, but I also want to make sure that they have clear direction from us this time around.
Okay, so, well, they had direction from us when we said we wanted to demolish it, but now, you know, we had more discussions about it, so that's good. So for what we have right now, we have the rejection of the bid. And then once we get that, then we can talk about next steps, whether we direct them to wait until the master plan RFP, or if we say we want to have another contract RFP for just the demolition. And I think we need to turn to our parks director to give us some input on that as well. So, but I want to make sure for what we're doing right now, the motion on the floor is to reject the bid. And so we can deal with that first. Okay? Are you ready for the question? All in favor to reject all contracts for the demolition of 40 Oaks Nature Preserve, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. Okay, so thank you. So with that, what was brought up was we have the RFP for the master plan for the parks. Mr. Duncan, if you don't mind, so that we can make sure in terms of the direction for staff to go. What, in terms of how you were dealing with that piece of 40 Oaks, what was part of what you were requesting in the RFP for the master plan?
Well, excuse me, for the RFP was everything in 40 Oaks, including the house. So as the house, as it stands now. So we wasn't looking at taking off any extensions or anything until we have discussions on long-term with the house. And
Okay.
then we'll make that decision from there.
Okay, so one of the most critical pieces of that has been, and always continues to be, the mothballing of it, and to make sure in terms of having it properly mothballed as we wait for that plan. So would that fall in, City Manager, would that be
Right.
something that would fall, where would that go?
Yeah, that would fall under, as far as responsibility, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yes, that would be a responsibility of Parks and Public
Public
Works.
Works, okay.
And then my question would be, what would be the funding source that you guys want us to allocate toward the mothballing process? Because I don't even know what that cost would be at this point.
Okay.
It's not much, okay.
So what we would need to do is follow up with that piece in terms of finding out, and that would probably have to come in, Mr. Attorney, I don't want to get too in the weeds in it, because all we were talking about was demolition right now. So just if, for the next time, that we can find out the funding sources for all this other pieces now that that's off the table, okay? So any other questions from the council, because this was the agenda item, and I don't want us to get too far off from the agenda item. Okay, all right, with that, we will move to consent agenda, which there are 8A through 8F, and so the items that are on consent agenda, the council, based on our work session last week, we do not have any further deliberation on these items. So the council will vote at one time to approve the items listed from A through F. And at this time, I will take a motion, and as part of the motion, I will ask the person making the motion to read each one of the consent agenda items. Yes, Councilman Perkins.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, items 8A through F. 8A being to adopt a resolution to appoint Attorney Julie Kert as Solicitor of the Municipal Court, and to approve a contract with Yeargan Kert LLC for Municipal Court Solicitors Services for a term of 1 year in the amount of $2,000 per month, $24,000 annually, to be funded out of the general fund effective January 1st, 2025. Item 8B, to adopt a resolution awarding a contract to the most responsive and responsible bidder, IKON Filmworks, for public meeting video recording and related services for a term of 1 year in the amount of $38,400, to be funded out of ARPA Funds effective November 8th, 2024. Item 8C, to approve the annual insurance premium payment to the Lexington Insurance in the amount of $41,756 for the city's leased office space located at 736 Park North Blvd, to be funded out of the general fund. Item 8D, to authorize the city engineer to issue an RFP for professional engineering services for the development of design and construction plans and permitting for the SPLOST II bond-funded Norman Road Dam Reconstruction Project. Item 8E, to authorize the city engineer to issue an RFP for contracting services for repairs to Norman Road Dam due to Hurricane Helene, to be funded out of SPLOST II. And finally, item 8F, to approve the 2025 holiday schedule for the City of Clarkston.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there a second? And I second. Okay, so it's been properly moved and second to approve items 8A through 8F as stated by the initial motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we will proceed to new business, which would be 9A, and that's to consider an ordinance to provide the adoption of a budget proposed by the city manager containing estimates of the proposed revenue and expenditures of the city of Clarkston, Georgia, and to provide for the levy of taxes for expenses of said city for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025, and ending December 31st, 2025. And so I'll turn that one to just our city manager and our finance director, Ms. Grant.
Yes, Mayor, thank you so much. We did the public hearing, the required public hearings, October 29th and also on today. And we are presenting a balanced budget. And so with that said, that staff would recommend approval of the budget as presented.
Okay. Are you ready for the motion? And just so, if you would like, we had some suggestions on how to grandfather some of this stuff too, if somebody wants to do that as part of their motion. I'm just bringing that point up. Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
So I have a question. I guess this question will go to Stephen. In regards to the recommendations that were brought forth. Are you okay?
Yeah, just a little bit.
That were brought before us today. That is procedural and process from an admin perspective. It has nothing to do with the budgetary, the fiscal amount. Or should we make that motion with those recommendations for processing, even though that has nothing to do with the approval of the budget?
So what the charter provides is that the budget need not provide more detail than by the department or program. So in my opinion, if there's $100,000 approved for community programs generally, I'm not sure if that was the exact term that was used, but that's what we're talking about, then the city manager is authorized to enter into contracts up to $100,000 in factoring in our city manager's spending authority of up to $25,000 per contract. That would basically the proposed budget would authorize the special particular projects that we heard about. Did that answer the question?
Yes and no, Stephen.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get a clean break. The procedural process of the recommendation that were provided to us today do not have to be included in the motion. Is that correct? Because it has nothing to do with the budget at here, and the city manager has oversight and authority to move it into any contract that she so chooses to, based off of what she can spend. Is that true?
The second part of that's definitely true. I'm not sure what you meant by the procedural processes.
So there were recommendations that were made for us today in regards to how we should move forward with the grant funds that we have.
Ah, okay. Those are not part of the budget.
Got it. Thank you, Stephen.
Right.
Okay. So just, I want to make sure I'm clear too. So we had a recommendation, for example, to grandfather those organizations that we traditionally provided, and then maybe mid-year to go through that whole grant process, or even do it with the remaining funds. So when someone is making that motion for this budget, they don't have to make any reference to that, or what would they have to do?
It is correct that that reference is not necessary. So I can think of a few ways to accomplish, just assuming for the sake of discussion that the council wants to accomplish what the community center and the telestory have asked for. One way to do that, in neither of the ways depends on them being specified in the budget. So you can approve this budget, which is a financial document for monies to be spent next year. And then either the city manager will enter into those agreements, or the council can put it on an agenda and do it themselves. But that, in either event, fits within the budget financially, but is not a part of the budget action.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, I will entertain a motion for item 9A.
I have a motion.
Yes.
To adopt the budget proposed by the city manager containing estimates of the proposed revenues and expenditures of the city of Clarkston, Georgia, and to provide the levy of taxes for expenses of said city for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded. I think Vice Mayor Johnson beat you, Councilman Perkins, sorry.
Okay.
By a split hair, sorry, split hair.
Can I get a replay on that?
It has been properly moved and seconded to adopt the proposed budget by the city manager containing estimates of the proposed revenues and expenditures of the city of Clarkston, Georgia, and to provide for the levy of taxes for expenses of said city for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Any abstentions? Motion passed. Okay, now we will move to consider resolution approving an agreement between the City of Clarkston and AT&T for internet and phone services in the amount of $46,740 annually, plus a one-time fee of $5,152 to be funded out of ARPA for 1 year and the general fund for 4 years, effective on or before 11/18/2024. And that's Ms. Dixon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Keisha Dixon in the City Manager's Office. As discussed at the work session on last week, we are requesting permission to enter into an agreement with AT&T for network services, managed equipment, as well as Office at Hand, which would be the phone system that we would use. Currently, we're with Comcast, and we're having some challenges, and when we go to the new building, we'd like to be able to function properly. AT&T is offering us what we need. For the network, it would include Public Works building, the new building that will be going to the Women's Club and Milam Pool. Also, for the phone service, it will be that same thing. There will be a total of 20 phone lines. I said 19 last time. There's going to be 19 office phones. 16 of those are employees, 3 will be conference rooms, and then the 20th line is actually going to be a landline at Milam Park. And there was a question raised last time about why are we only doing a landline at Milam Park. It had strictly to do with the fact that there's a pool there, and these phones will be, the other phones will be connected to the internet, and we want to make sure that people will have access to call 911. Additionally, when we were looking at it, we considered the fact that we will have PD right across the hall from us, and we can contact PD directly. We also have Peter Rabati on the phone. He is with AT&T to answer any technical questions because that's not my field. But as a part of this process, we'll be getting certain credits. We'll have 2 promotional offers. First, each site will receive a $1,000 credit by the 3rd month, which totals $6,000. That will be credited on our internet invoice. And then second, on the Fat Pipe on-site installation and configuration fee valued at $5,000, that will be waived immediately, so we won't have to pay that fee. And then we'll also receive a $1330 credit, which is reflective of $70 credit per phone line applied during the 3rd month of billing. And it's important to note that the phone line at Milam Park will include a battery backup, and that 736 Park North Blvd, in the event that there's a power outage, we'll have battery backups, but we will also have the ability to stay connected at the main location. Any technical questions? Mr. Rabati's on the phone.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll take a motion from the council. Okay.
I move that we approve the agreement between the City of Clarkston and AT&T for net and phone services in the amount of $46,740 annually, plus a one-time fee of $5,152 to be funded out of ARPA funds for 1 year and the general fund for 4 years, effective on or before November 18th, 2024.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. It has been moved and properly second to approve an agreement between the City of Clarkston and AT&T for internet and phone services in the amount of $46,740 annually, plus a one-time fee of $5,152 to be funded out of ARPA funds for 1 year and general fund for 4 years, effective on or before 11/18/2024. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor Johnson.
My question is for the city manager. I did ask for some additional information at the last meeting, but looking at this AT&T landline contract for $46,740 plus the one-time fee of $5,000 gets us a little bit over $50,000 for just landlines. And when I look at the AT&T bill that we have, we pay $42,000 a year for those same individuals with those same landlines to have cell phones. We're only 1.7 square miles. So it's like we're paying double for the same thing. I mean, if I call somebody in Clarkston, they can pretty much walk to me. So I know we need some phone landlines, but do we really need $50,000 worth of landlines and everybody has a cell phone?
Well, that's not necessarily all the landlines. That also includes our internet service as well. And you said the installation amount?
I get it.
Yes.
The equipment, so it's
Right.
the phone lines, it's the phones themselves, it's the network service that we're getting as well.
Right, I did see that, but my question is, we're paying for 20 landlines, and out of these 20 landlines, 19 individuals still have cell phones. I mean, do we really need all of all these phones?
So,
First of all, does everybody
sorry.
on staff need a cell phone?
Well, that's actually a good question, and that would be something we can go back and evaluate. Those phones, of course, were issued probably for a long time ago, so we may be able to go back and audit and see whether or not people that have cell phones. I would like to say I think it's important that some of our key staff have cell phones,
Correct.
like myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm rarely in my office. I'm typically in a conference room or in a training somewhere. And if you guys are looking for me, if you're calling my office phone, it's going to go to voicemail. I may not necessarily need an office phone. If you need to reach me in the office, you may have to go through Ms. Dixon. But sometimes I will, sometimes I will need a office phone. But I mean, that will definitely be something we can go back and do an audit of all of the cell phones that we have to see if people really do need one. So, I mean, I think that's a good idea.
May I add that all of the lines are not connected to people that have cell phones. So 3 of the 19 lines are connected to conference rooms. So those are not cell phones. Ms. June, who's at the front desk, that won't be a cell phone. That's actually going to be the main line that she has. And I was trying to find the list right quick that I sent you, Vice Mayor, because all of the lines are not necessarily connected, and then like the chief will get a line, most of the department heads.
I totally understand department heads. Police were not even in my equation. I think all of them need a phone. My thing was records clerks and court clerks that their job works, they're in an office. I don't want a records clerk to answer a cell phone if I call. You get what I'm saying? I'm thinking they're in the records department. So I'm thinking, Miss June, Public Works, these department heads, I totally get it. But there's people with phones that, I guess I'm just asking, can we reevaluate that process?
So I think, and the city manager said that she's willing to do an audit. And so thanks for bringing that to our attention. And so any other comments at this time? Councilwoman Hood.
With that in mind, I would suggest that perhaps we delay this item until we see what we come up with. Is there any reason that we couldn't approve this at next month's meeting?
Well, I think we delayed this one because we had this, we were going to have it at a previous month's agenda. And so, and we already pushed it. And so I think ensuring that there isn't duplication of phone usage is something that we are charging our city manager to come back to us to do. So for us to move forward with this motion, we can do it up, do it down, and then we can have her to provide us that information.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
Would that entail redoing this contract?
No, this is
So the
landline
contract,
services.
I think what's more important is this is what we're looking at our new facility, and ensuring that equipment and those actual the internet services and installing and all those pieces are included in this amount. I think what Vice Mayor Johnson brought up is for us to just do an audit to look at what from a cell phone perspective, but Ms. Dixon laid out all of the areas where we would use those phones, and pretty much if you listen to where she said in terms of the conference rooms, making sure we have a dedicated landline at Milam Park, the police office, the front receptionist, and making sure that those key people have that landline in their office. I think that covers everything.
So we'll stay with the number of landlines that this contract covers, and then we will deal with the results of the audit on the cell phones, which are not part of this contract.
And which is not part of the motion. So,
Thank you.
okay, anything else? All right, are you ready for the question? All in favor to approve an agreement between the City of Clarkston and AT&T for internet and phone services in the amount of $46,740 annually, plus a one-time fee of $5,152 to be funded out of ARPA funds for 1 year and general fund for 4 years, effective on or before 11/18/2024. All in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. Now we'll proceed with item 9C, which is to consider an alcohol beverage late night sales application for consumption on premises for Ponce Sports Lounge located at 3924 East Ponce De Leon Avenue, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021. Clerk Mitchell. Clerk Mitchell.
On October 1st, the City Council approved an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Code regarding alcohol beverages to allow late-night sales for consumption on premises subject to certain conditions. The City Clerk's office received and reviewed an alcoholic beverage late-night sales application from business owner of Ponce Sports Lounge for late-night sales for consumption on premises. This address is 3924 East Ponce De Leon Avenue, Clarkston, Georgia. The Clarkston Police Department met with the owner at approximately 11:30 a.m. on October 22nd to assess the noise level from the exterior of the business. The owner agreed to monitor the level of the volume to keep the volume at level 3, which appeared reasonable and not a nuisance when tested from outside, including the parking lot. The city clerk determined all terms and conditions have been met pertaining to the ordinance. The late night sales permits may be granted by the city council if the council finds that the late night sales at the subject location will not have an undue negative impact on the health, morals, or general welfare of the residents of the city.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for this item. Not on this one.
I'm against it. That's all I can say.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion at this time from anybody.
Sales permit.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we approve the late night sales application. Is there any further discussion? Councilwoman Hood?
Yes, I think I can restate that I have been against this proposal. However, the proposal passed. The applicant has met the requirements that were put in the application, and there we are.
Okay, thank you for your comment. So any other comments at this time? You ready for the question? All in favor to approve the late night sales application, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. So now we'll move into 9D, which is the zoning public hearing. And so we're going to allocate 30 minutes, 15 on each side, for and against. And if we need to. What do you mean? So we'll have 15 minutes on each side. And Clerk Mitchell, who did we have signed up for this? And so as part of this, it'll be 15 for each side. Each person will be given 3 minutes. If we need to have more people, we'll make sure in terms of allocating additional time. So we'll start with those who are for.
They did not specify.
Okay.
They just listed their item that they wanted to speak.
Okay, so everyone who is for, and I will read the public hearing section, and that is a public hearing to receive public comments regarding an ordinance to amend the zoning code to increase the maximum floor area ratio, reduce the minimum lot size, and increase maximum lot coverage requirements for the NR3 zone to reduce the minimum lot width and remove side setback requirements for single-family attached dwelling units, townhomes, to increase the maximum building height for the town center TC district, and to reduce parking requirements for certain dwelling types. And that is for everyone who is for this. I would like for you to stand and make sure you make your comments at this time. So everyone who's for, you can stand, come on up and speak for 3 minutes. And state your name.
It's Matthew Biggers, 1061 Jolly. Does 4-ish count?
Okay, you'll get 4-ish.
No, not minutes. I mean like 4.
No, you get 3 minutes.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor Burks and members of this council. Many members of this council, in looking at the platforms that they ran on, and residents of this NR3 neighborhood in particular, have stood at this very microphone to speak and have added in virtually every single time at this microphone that they do support more affordable housing. And it's a nebulous concept. My question for the council and for residents is, if not here, where? And if not now, when? Because here are the facts. And facts, they're brutal. They don't really care about feelings. They can't, well, I guess sometimes they can be spun, and they don't really care about politics. So, per tax records, there have been 0, not 1, new housing options added to NR3, the NR3 district this decade. The last decade, 2010 to 2020, saw a total of 2 housing units added, just 2, and both were single-family homes. So 2 houses in the last 14 years in the NR3 district. A relevant comparison given this week's events. I was listening to the news, and this was being discussed on the news, and I thought it had relevance. So there's been talks of voting suppression happening election week. And it's important, it's a term that we use now to describe laws that result in suppressing voting, but was originally a term coined when looking at voting data. And that data, in turn, pointed towards certain laws as the culprit. So it was actually a data-driven terminology, okay? So if we take that same methodology and we apply it towards housing, then the figures I've just stated support the term housing suppression. Now, that's i.e. that current zoning laws or city processes or both have currently and historically suppressed housing in the NR3 district. I leave the council to decide what the root cause is. I don't have the exact answer, as I said, 4-ish. I do have a hypothesis, however. I will say this proposal seems a tad aggressive. It's a tad aggressive to jumpstart housing creation in R3 when there hasn't been some. I get the reasoning behind getting a little aggressive on it, but I do think that there's room for compromise in there that will still provide said jumpstart, because when you look at other municipalities, 0 this decade is a very unfortunate number compared to other neighborhoods and other municipalities. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone for? Anyone for? Anyone for? So I'm going to close out the... Come on, Kathleen. I know you didn't. Come on, Kathleen.
Hello, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Kathleen Andres, and I have owned property in the city of Clarkston since 2008. Today, I own 3769 Church Street. And I live in Scottdale, and I've been in Scottdale 25 years. A lot has changed in what I call and consider the East Decatur corridor. And in full honesty, I am a licensed realtor. So any of you who want to think that I am only saying this because I'm a realtor and I want to sell property are incorrect, because I own rentals and I have affordable rentals that I have had for 20-some years. And trying to find housing for people in this day and age is absolutely horrendous. People cannot find a home to rent. And if you want, forget Decatur. I mean, Decatur is through the roof. And then you come out to Scottdale. I personally own 2 vacant lots, and I could put $800,000 homes on them. And they're big homes, they're expensive, they cost a lot of money to operate, the taxes are high, and people are looking to downsize. I am 71 years old, and I would love to be a smaller house, so what I do is I only live on my first floor. I don't go anywhere else. But people are looking for smaller footprints, innovative designs that's very like the cottages, but not everything has to be done in that format, in that footprint. There's a lot of innovation throughout the world, and it's not just in major cities. People are and cities are actually writing code to put ADUs in backyards of the kids so that people like me are close to the family and have a place to live. They also, they check for their meds. They make sure, I don't take any, but they check for their meds. They make sure they eat. And this is a huge societal issue. And it is scary. It's very scary. And change like this is either going to come to an environment like Clarkston where young families can grow and start and thrive, or if people who oppose it are my age, they don't have to worry. Their taxes don't go up. And that is a major issue, because it is the old people like me, and I don't really consider myself old, but it's the older people like me as well as the young people who don't need as much space. And I would just ask everybody to consider change, which is hard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So that concludes 4 okay.
Good evening. I want to really state why I am for a simple reason. That is, zoning is not a zero-sum game. And we have to look for who is we planning for. A lot of the community might have an elderly, like want to stay, but a lot of our community are continuously being gentrified out of the community, because there's only maybe 12, I could be wrong, but maybe 12% of the homes are owned. So where would the other families who want to stay in Clarkston, the new Americans, where would they live? And they are not the one new, like one person or two people, so that cottage might not be a suitable thing. It might be suitable for the older people. But we have to imagine what zoning would need to be in order to imagine who is it for, right? And I would like it to see that a lot of our community also have options, to find zoning options that will fit them and make sure that after they stay in America for 5 years, they're making good enough income, they can buy houses here and continue, because home ownership is the only upward mobility into that equality in terms of income. So I'm tired of seeing our community continuously being gentrified and Clarkston being a one-stop shop, right? Which is you come in an incubator and you move out, right? So I have a concern on one side, which I know that you will take care of, but I am from the UK originally, and I know options are necessary. I don't want you to be afraid of options. I want you to lean into discomfort and find what will work, so therefore different people of different size families can have an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for? Anyone else for? Anyone else for? That was 3 times. So now I will allow people who have opposition to it, and if you would like to get in line and state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm Debbie Gathman. I live on Mell Avenue. I am completely, shockingly, with Matthew. I'm completely with Matthew on how aggressive I think this is. I think 1,400 square feet is too small for a lot. I feel very strongly about it. I did a lot of talking to a lot of my friends who are planning and zoning, and we read books about it, and I think I gave Mark a book on community building, and I am a big supporter of leaning into discomfort a little bit. So I'm willing to bend a little bit, but 1,400 I feel is way too small, and I think it's a rigid idea. I could compromise. I talked to Decatur, I also talked to Athens, and I talked to Gainesville, and I talked to Stone Mountain. And I think I could compromise instead of 1,400 to more. And it doesn't have to be a bazillion, but there's got to be somewhere between 90,000 feet for a regular lot, and NR1. 9,000, yeah. I remember when you put it out, I couldn't remember. But there's a big gap between 1,400 and 9,000. I think we could find someplace in the middle, and I would be comfortable with doing some apartments or townhouses that would be affordable, but I don't have much faith in it, because if the government doesn't sponsor it, it's just not affordable. I mean, we've seen that all over the city. Decatur right now is pretending they're building affordable apartments in Legacy Park, and it turns out they're going to run somewhere around $2,000 a month. So my current situation, I only pay $622 a month, and I'm struggling to do that. And I'm not old. I'm medium. I'm medium. So it feels to me like if they think $2,000 is affordable, they're nuts. So we've got to compromise in many ways, and I would like to see additional housing in Clarkston, and I would like it to be affordable, but I'm not sure a developer is going to be able to do that. So that's the end. Can I say anything about the rezoning on the next one, or is that a whole different?
That's a whole nother ball game.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to be here till midnight.
Hey. Chris Becker, the father of the giggles there. 966 Pecan Street. I guess looking into this, one piece is there's a bit of a disconnect between the agenda and what was in the packet. The packet says to defer this. The Planning and Zoning Committee had said.
So what from a procedural perspective, since we had it, we put the public hearing. The next item will take care of what you're talking about in terms of how action.
Okay.
But we allow you to have
So,
speak.
So the quick comment there is, I mean, a lot of us got into this late and concerned and confused with other items in recent history. So some of that was at planning and zoning. Hey, can we look at this one at a time? And I was digging through this one at a time. It is interesting to me. I mean, a lot of it makes perfect sense in being in line with allowing townhomes. So then the question is to a lot of people, are they for or against allowing townhomes? I know I asked this at the previous work session, and thanks for the answer. I get it now looking at it. You can't have a townhome with a 50-foot front of the lot. That's not a townhome. So the question is, do we want townhomes allowed in all these areas? Now, I know there are other problems with our zoning because I guess the new city council or all the offices are going to be light industrial. I don't wonder. Anyway, so I see that piece. The couple of pieces that jump out to me, the height allowance for city center, maybe I've missed a whole bunch. I don't see why we need to add 2 more stories to the city center in Clarkston. That seems like there are only a couple buildings that get anywhere close to that, and they already tower above everything else. So lumping that in with the rest of these changes is somewhat surprising. The parking change that only affects cottage developments is a little confusing because it references as allowed in the rest of the code, and you go to the rest of the code and it doesn't actually speak to that specifically. So my opinion on it, I know that I've heard that it's been talked about a lot, and I believe a lot of us came into it late, don't understand it, concerned by it. And I understand that it would be painful to split it up into multiple, hey, this is actually for NR3, because part of it is for NR3, part of it is not for NR3, but we're saying that it all is. So I'll leave now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening. My name is Tim Hall. I live at 3525 Bacon Street. It should be clear to everyone that I'm opposed to 1,400 square foot minimum lot sizes that are 18 feet wide with no setbacks in a lovely, older, viable residential Clarkston neighborhood that I'm very proud to call home. I'm opposed to reducing minimum parking to 1 space when it's most likely that the occupants will possess 2 cars. It is important to focus on the process that led us to where we are tonight. I've found in the public record the agendas for 3 Housing and Infrastructure Committee meetings in 2024. There was 1 agenda for a meeting that occurred in 2023. There was only 1 reference to the proposed zoning change matters in the March 4, 2024 Housing and Infrastructure agenda. That said, D, to discuss changing lot coverage and FAR restrictions for NR3. Were there other H&I meetings that are not on your website or in the public record? If there were, then H&I is violating your own rules by having meetings without notifying the public. That has happened before, and it is quite scary if it's happening again, and it is simply wrong. In the public record, there are no meeting minutes, no packets of information that would be discussed, or any other information about the H&I meetings. I have filed an open records request to obtain this information, but have not received any response as of this time. How can anyone on the H&I committee, particularly the chair, sit here and tell me there's been many opportunities for the public to provide input? That opportunity did not appear to exist on the March 4th, 2024 agenda at the H&I meeting because there's no record of any details of what was being proposed being available for the public to comment on. The brief agenda reference is not enough detail for me to form an opinion on. I would argue that the proposal in the March 4th agenda was so vaguely disclosed and described that I could not have possibly provided any intelligent public comment at that time. I have an email from the chair of the H&I committee dated June 13th, 2024, with details of the proposed zoning ordinance changes that were made available to the public on June 27th at the City Council work session. How can public input on something happen before there are any details of what is being proposed? I think the recommendation of the P&Z board from 1031 was excellent and should be followed by the City Council. My neighbors and I are absolutely interested in being reasonable and reaching an acceptable compromise on this matter. I wish I had the time to tell you about the zoning ordinance rewrite that was done in June of 23, just a little over a year ago, but sadly my 3 minutes is short. Recycling a similar zoning ordinance proposal that included NR1, NR2, and NR3, but was rejected, and now trying to cram that mess down the throats of NR3 residents without allowing their input is just not right. Your proposal is not what Houston did, and you know it. You let some very important features out, but there's not time for me to explain. I would like to close with a quote from James Baldwin, one of my favorite writers. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. It is impossible to improve on Mr. Baldwin's great words, but I would like to add this message to some members of the City Council and Housing Infrastructure Committee. Actions speak much louder than words. You are doing this the wrong way. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
My name is Jennifer Luce, and I live at 922 Mel Avenue, right across the street from one of the topics on the agenda. I'm opposed to the lot size minimums, and sorry, I am a little vertically challenged. I grew up that way. I am opposed to the lot size minimums being dropped to 1,400 square feet. I did send an email to every single one of you guys, so if you, and it was confirmed by several, if you don't have it, please let me know and I'll resend that. That points out why I'm opposed. I think, you know, I know that change is inevitable, and I do lean into discomfort every single day. But what I've learned is that there's some discomfort that we can grow through joy as much as we can through pain. And for me to imagine, you know, the amount of residences potentially that would go across the street from me at you guys' current proposal is growing through pain. And I believe that there is room for compromise so that we can actually grow through some joy and lean into a little bit of discomfort. But I think the question comes down to is, you know, now that you guys are aware that there is that the residents, there are residents that don't want this to go through. Perhaps we need to open it up to the rest of the residents. You know, do we want does the residents at large, do the residents at large want Clarkston to be such a high density city? Do we even want that? I know I don't. I've been here since '96. I've seen a lot of incarnations in this city. And I know one incarnation that I don't want to see is a heck of a lot more traffic that we already get, a lot more congestion, and that is growing through discomfort to me, in my humble opinion. So I'm just asking that we table this so that we can have more community involvement around this and actually come together as a community and a council to find a resolution that we can all kind of be happy with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Before I start, can I have a little presentation that I made that I'd like to give to the council?
You want to give to council?
Yes,
okay.
I have one copy for each of you. Is that
all
okay?
Right, you can give that out. Yes, you may. Yes, you may. You can approach the bench, please. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, I put this together hastily today. I was on a busy day at work, but don't spell it.
Okay, we appreciate it. Oui, with your deja vu. Thank you.
All right, so thank you. My name is Taylor Brooks. I live at 1024 Pecan Street. And today I want to talk to you about why I oppose this proposal. If we go through this presentation very quickly, because then I have some other comments. The first question, the first slide says, is this really necessary? Clarkston has a population of approximately 15K and a total area of 1.86 square miles. This leads to a population density of 8,030. This is in fact the highest population density in all of Metro Atlanta per the 2020 census. We are already a very dense city. Is this deja vu? There have been multiple proposals to do things in the NR3 district, including one by a right-leaning policy institute to reduce all of our lot sizes by half in 2019. I want to get to Houston, which is a problematic example. On this slide, you can see multiple images of various cities, and if you look at the Houston area, you can see that there is a lot of concrete, a lot of houses that are very close together in close proximity, which would increase runoff across the city. If we look at the lot sizes across the Atlanta metro region, we can see that Clarkston is near the very tail end. Now, granted, this is with the highest NR1 neighborhood. However, I would gladly do the same analysis for the lowest or smallest units in the areas. Okay, so with that said, I need to get to my comments. So this is the same thing I gave to the Planning and Zoning Board the other day. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you to express my concerns regarding the proposed changes to our zoning ordinances. These changes, which increase the size of buildings allowed, erase the minimum lot coverage, reduce lot sizes, and threaten to fundamentally alter the character of this city. First, let's consider the impact on our community's identity. Clarkston has always prided itself on its small town feel. In fact, it is on the seal behind you on the wall. Small town, big heart. A unique blend of mixed income housing that fosters a sense of community and belonging. How many small towns do you know of that are composed exclusively of apartments and townhomes? I don't know of any. The proposed changes would lead to denser development across the city, transforming our cityscape into one dominated by tightly packed townhomes and row houses and towering 7-story apartments. Further, denser development risks having environmental impacts on our small city. In this time when cities across the world are grappling with climate change and a warmer climate, why would we increase the amount of heat-absorbing, concrete-heavy developments? Smaller buildings with setbacks also ensure that water can be absorbed by the earth instead of flowing into our already overburdened stormwater infrastructure. As well, all these new residents would also increase the usage of our roads, and particularly at the intersection of Mell, Church, Ponce, and Northern, which is already poorly designed and prone to backups. Second, let's focus on what truly matters for the future of Clarkston. Instead of altering our zoning laws to allow for denser development across solely the northern portion, principally the northern portion of our city, we should concentrate on enhancing the types of businesses that we attract and improving the layout of our central business area. For example, imagine a Lidl or some other grocery store of small size that could come to the city. I'll just say that together we can ensure that Clarkston remains a place where everybody flourishes and everybody feels at home.
Okay, thank you. And so with that, the next 3 people will be from the proponent side in terms of the time. So you can still come up, but I'm still looking at the time. It's okay. Okay. You're an opponent, but from the balance of the time. So you're good.
So I still talk.
You're good.
Hi, my name's Jan Riley. I live at 1155 Jolly Avenue. I'm against the 1,400-foot setback size for the lots. I want you to think about it's about the size of this room, okay? With setbacks about like this for the houses. That's supposedly all of this is about affordable housing. But we know that most affordable housing is not built by developers. We can see that with all of the development that's come through Clarkston thus far. They come in, they say, we're building, we're going to charge this much for the units when they get done. By the time they're on sale, they're always 100, sometimes even double the cost that they came in and said. So we want to make changes like this so that developers can supposedly bring in affordable housing. When it hasn't worked like that ever, and it isn't working like that in different areas of the city or the country. We are the most dense city, and there's a reason that we haven't had a lot of development in NR3. There's not much space to put it in. It's one of the few places in Clarkston that actually has lots that are still available because of the older houses and because of the neighborhood has been intact for so long. The thing I don't want is to drive down the street and find a lot that is empty, that now has a new subdivision on it, because somebody decided that would be a great idea for affordable housing. When it gets built, it's not actually affordable to people that live here that want to build and live in those houses. In terms of it generating new income for the city, that's another reason that I've heard that this was supposedly a really good idea. Well, I think listening to the budget today made it very clear that we're doubling our administrative costs. We need more diversity and income coming from our businesses. And we need a strong presence of businesses that are going to provide employment. The thing I find the most frustrating about the car setback or the car allowance to 1, 2, they can be permeable. So having it be a green space is kind of crazy. But I have this question to you. How many cars do you have at your house? How many times have you ever had company? Have you ever wanted to have a party? These people are going to park on the street. The house that's directly next door to the Jolly Avenue, Smith Street, has 5 cars in their driveway every day. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, and I hope that you consider letting us have more input.
Okay, thank you. And just from City Attorney, I just want to make sure, because we had time for the last 2 people to speak. Oh, wait a minute. And we had time left over from where the proponents spoke. So we had time left over. So I just want to make sure, because we had a total of 30 minutes. And that's under section C, I think.
According to our rules that are in the zoning ordinance, it does not call for the time to be reallotted from proponents to opponents. It says the total time after the participants are given opportunity to speak, if a portion of the total time for the side, proponents or opponents, remains unused, registered speakers will have an opportunity to speak again within the total time allotted for their side. So, I mean, the mayor runs the meeting, and you would have the authority to hear from more people if you want, but you could also close the public hearing having followed our established rules.
Okay. So I will allow one more person on that side, because have we met the 15 minutes on for the opposition? We have? Okay. So I'm going to have to stop.
So I don't get to.
It's only 2, it's okay if I allow the 2. I just want to make sure from.
It's definitely okay to allow more, and it's also okay to not, so it's your decision.
Okay, I'll let them 2 talk.
I had signed my name up. I was just sitting for baby wrangler her to make sure that I was not disruptive. So.
Okay. So, Dean, can I ask you to allow her to speak?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
But I only speak 1 minute, if you can allow.
I'll share. You can have one.
Okay, come on. Okay, so I'll be quick.
And that took 3 minutes right there.
Okay.
My name is Simone Wilson. I live at 1060 Jolly Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mayor Beverly and council members. As you know, that I'm opposed to the zoning amendments for the NR3 neighborhood, as they have been brought forth by Councilman Jamie Carroll, for many reasons. A lot of people have already covered those reasons, so I'm going to speak to specifics, which I don't always do. I usually shoot from the hip. But I have done some research, maybe some of you all have, on the Houston comparison that Mr. Carroll has used. And this model, well, first of all, it's a 640 square mile city, and we are 2.3 or 2 square miles. So that's weird. It just doesn't seem like an accurate comparison. And the reason that I'm saying all this is because it's been referenced so many times. I know that Mr. Carroll has strongly referenced it in his proposal that he submitted to the city, to the outside review board that was hired in hopes of gaining support. He's talked to me about it. He's referenced it a couple of times with me in conversations. So in the 90s, Houston's population rose steeply, and they needed more affordable housing. So in 1998, they had a comprehensive review of planning practices by a citizen committee, and then the Houston Planning Commission, and they decided to make some very substantial revisions that was designed to allow for denser, more walkable neighborhoods, which I know is what is sort of one of the goals here. It's important to note, though, that if we're making comparisons, the city of Clarkston lowered the minimum lot size from 5,000 square feet to as low as 1,400 in the city center. And 3,500 square foot minimum lot sizes within most of its broader urban area. By comparison, I would call that in our 3 neighborhoods. So there's no good comparison there at all. That's because they made the tiny lots in the center, and that, to me, that's actually another possible focus. That's another conversation. It's also notable that in their plan, the communities were allowed for an opt-out. Now, and they also called it a block option, and it was crucial in allowing for these new requirements to pass, as it quelled local opposition to the measure. There is no opt-out that I have read in any of this. Nothing's been talked about that. So again, it's just no comparison. It's not apples to apples. And in my opinion, it's definitely not enough to base making such broad changes to our neighborhood zoning on. So,
thank you.
Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Dean, 1 minute.
Me first?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let's close this out. I'll do 2 minutes fast. Hi, I'm Charity Becker. My grandmother actually is Edna Hensler, who he spoke to about the 40 Oaks stuff. I grew up visiting my grandparents around here. The city where I grew up is actually Dallas, Georgia, which ironically is where they moved to, and I moved here, so it was a fun switch. But the thing that I have seen there, which I second everyone, is that in the proposals that I have seen for the developers, and granted there's only that one where they tried to get the variances, it is scary. I will say I am scared that basically developers are going to come in here and overdevelop, change the culture of our street. It is quiet. I love that it's quiet. I love that it's dark. I am a highly sensitive person. Literally, I'm on the autistic spectrum. It's not something that I'm just making up because I want to sound special. If I could change it about myself, you better believe I would. But it's something that I got. And there's so many things that are nice about living in a peaceful neighborhood that I already have a problem with 285 being as odd as it is. Man, if we could get a sound barrier in there, I tell you, I would praise the Lord right now. We need a sound barrier on that side of town. But it's to add so much in such a small space. I will tell you, in the last 4 years since the pandemic, I have really felt our street come together and start talking to each other, and it's created such a nice feeling of just security and safety, and everybody walks their kids down the street, like they said. The parking is concerning, the density is concerning. It's not that I don't want buildings, because I love the idea of having affordable housing, I really do, but I have not seen developers do that, as has been said, and I am really scared about what's going to happen to that area. Right now, all we have is our zoning protections, and it's there to keep us safe, and I don't feel safe with the current proposal as it is, and I really pray and hope you guys will please reconsider to come back and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Dean Moore, Rayford Trail, and I like her leaving on that note because you and your team are in place to protect us. But as I've said before, I think the Standing Advisory Committee process that we have is corrupt. It leads to corruption and it excludes the community. The Planning and Zoning Committee said to send it back to the Standing Advisory Committee. I agree with that, but I think it needs to be a different committee that we go back to with people that will present information to the public and allow the public to comment on it in public meetings. So that's what my recommendation is. And I encourage you to protect us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close all the public hearings out at this time. Okay, now we will move to item 9E, which is to consider an ordinance to amend the zoning code to increase the maximum floor area ratio, reduce the minimum lot size, and increase maximum lot coverage requirements for the NR3 zone to reduce the minimum lot width and remove side setback requirements for single-family home attached dwelling units, townhomes, to increase the maximum building height for the town center TC district, and to reduce parking requirements for certain dwelling types. And so with that, I know when we initially had our work session, we did not have staff nor the consulting group that actually came up with the report. I would like at this time to allow them the opportunity to talk to us about that. And I see that Jason Gaines is here, and Mr. Gaines, if you would like to, unless staff would like to start off first. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just a quick presentation on what is being presented here tonight on this one. So your first section is to increase the maximum floor area ratio from 0.4 to 1, to increase the minimum lot, to decrease the minimum lot size from 5,000 square foot to 1,400 square feet, and to increase the maximum lot coverage from 50%. Then it would break down by the different types of attached single family. So single family detached would remain 50%. Single family attached, which would be your townhomes, would be increased to 67%. Triplex would be 62%, duplex 57%, and quadruplex would be 67% as well. And that's solely for the NR3 lots. The second part of this is to reduce the minimum lot width from 60 feet to 18 feet, and reduce the side setback from 15 feet to 0 feet. The third piece here is going to be increase the maximum building height for TC zone lots from 5 stories or 75 feet to 7 stories to 100 feet. And the fourth piece would be to reduce parking requirements for cottage housing from 1.2 to 2 per dwelling unit to 1 per dwelling unit. And it was brought to our attention today, staff was able to review the minutes that we received today. So on March 4th, the Housing and Infrastructure Committee discussed the lot coverage and FAR restrictions for NR3. Those were the only topics they covered. And then on May 13th, all the items that were presented here tonight were discussed with the Housing and Infrastructure Committee. So it was a bit misleading on staff's report there that it was seen twice. So part of it was seen twice and part of it was only seen once. And with that, the recommendation for Planning and Zoning Board was to send this back to the Housing and Infrastructure Committee for further engagement. And to address some concerns earlier, I do believe it would go back to the Housing and Infrastructure Committee and then back to Planning and Zoning. So it would be 2 opportunities for the public to come back before you all saw it in multiple boards.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Jason, would you like to come up and do a quick intro, and then if we have any questions for you, and welcome back.
All right. Thank you for that welcome. I appreciate the opportunity. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jason Gaines. I'm with W&A Engineering, and we were contracted to take a look at the proposed changes and just offer a quick overview of how they would factor into the overall implementation of your comp plan and other master planning efforts that the city has done, like your LCI plan, for instance. And just from a broad perspective, these recommendations, as has been stated by many who have spoken here this evening, would increase, would provide an environment that would increase the residential density, the buildable residential density. Just based on the LCI plan and your comp plan, there's definitely desires expressed in those or recommendations expressed within those to provide increased density in the right places. Now, whether that correct place is NR3, I'm not sure. Our directive in this was did not include any of the background in regards to the details of what the Housing and Infrastructure Committee discussed or what they talked about. It didn't include anything about Houston or anything. I just found out about Houston last week, just to be frank. So, you know, that piece was left out. So we were looking at it strictly from the objective standpoint of, is the desire to increase density? If it is, do these changes promote that or encourage that? And the general answer to that is yes. You know, we didn't do any direct comparisons to other metropolitan Atlanta area cities or anything like that. That wasn't part of the directive we were given. I mean, I can just tell you from my experience, there's no one with a 1,400 square foot lot. You might see somewhere around maybe 4,000 to 4,500 being a minimum lot, the typical minimum lot size in other metro cities. Just general statement, but that's kind of where it stands. So with that, that's pretty much you know, what we did, and I'll gladly accept any questions if there are any.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hood.
I'm glad to hear that 1,400 is pretty much off the chart from the standpoint of small lots, so I appreciate that. And I understand also that you were under constraints from the standpoint of you had to look at what was in front of you. But if we're talking about increased density, there are other numbers and places that could be done in our city. The other thing is there are some inconsistencies in what is presented in the report, and part of it has to do with the minimum lot frontage for NR3 for duplexes versus townhouses, and I got confused in it because it references townhouses, but it doesn't say duplexes. And also the lot examples that were drawn show 1,400 square feet in a duplex with 18 feet frontage and quadruplex with 18 feet frontage, and that doesn't follow along with the way I read the proposal. Also, there's some confusion about the one parking space per unit in a townhouse, but in fact, I think this is proposing one parking space per unit for single family, a duplex, triplex, and quadruplex. I'm sorry. Okay. One parking space, so single family, 2 parking spaces. One parking space for a duplex per unit. So per unit, one parking space per unit for a duplex. Same for a triplex, 1 parking space, and a quadruplex, 4. Now, the average number of vehicles per family per a 2022 study by the transportation segment of the U.S. government says that that's 1.83 vehicles. Well, where are the 0.83 vehicles going to park? I mean, it is, if you round up, it's basically 2 vehicles. So you build something that has 4 units. In total, it has 4 parking spaces, but you really need double that. Now, I understand that this is an issue of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. There are people who want to force restrictive parking things on the built environment, but that's contrary to reality. We don't have a transit-oriented development. We only have two bus routes in the whole city. So there's no alternative, okay? Now, so can you address that?
What is it that you want him to address?
Well, I'm asking, I mean, if I'm supposed to be asking questions,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
gonna put it in the form of the
Okay.
question.
So you had a lot of questions there. You had a lot of parts to it, and I understand. So I understand. Councilwoman Hood, you brought up a lot of points. So let me kind of bring it back. There were some inconsistencies based on what Councilwoman Hood was saying in terms of drawings and some other pieces, maybe based on the information that you had.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So speaking to the duplex, quadruplex, triplex issue, from our look at this, there's no clear attached. We're talking about attached single-family units technically, and that could include townhomes as well. And a lot of this discussion has included townhomes, but from what we found, townhome isn't specifically defined in this ordinance, and that was actually one of our recommendations, to add a specific definition for a townhouse or a townhome to mitigate that confusion and make that distinction. So I think what we provided in terms of the illustration was meant to focus on the duplex, triplex, quadruplex, or whatnot, but we also wanted to make sure that townhomes were specifically called out and defined, so that at some point those specific parameters for setback and separation could be distinguished as well. Because another part of it was that there wasn't really anything in there currently that spoke to the end unit on a townhome, a row of townhomes. Exactly. So we made the recommendation to include something in there specific for that as well. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but we didn't necessarily make these recommendations. We just took the recommendations as they were provided to us and kind of made our assessment of how they could work or how they couldn't work and what might be included to try to make them better. In terms of the parking piece, yes, approximately two vehicles per household is a rule of thumb standard. And I think a lot of places when I say places, I mean cities and counties, try to address parking more in commercial or mixed use environments as opposed to strictly residential environments. So when we looked at this, it was a little like, okay, whoa, we want to try to limit parking in strictly residential uses. Okay, we can look at that, and the best way that we could identify a benefit for that was to say, when you look at the amount of impervious surface that's created and stormwater runoff that's created, and I know that there have been a lot of flooding and stormwater issues here over the years in Clarkston, that was the benefit that we could identify from making that change. And again, we just kind of looked at the recommendation that was given to us and said, okay, well, what's the pros, what's the cons, and that was the positive that we come up with.
Okay.
I think you were
Councilwoman Hood. I'm going to let other people, if they have the chance to speak. So I want to make sure. Thank you for that. Anyone else would like to speak at this time? Anyone else likes to speak at this time? Okay. Councilwoman Hood, you can have your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to say you're spot on, in my opinion, about the need for a definition of townhouse, and I think we should do that as quickly as possible. I do know that one of the things you did mention was the impact on the runoff, et cetera, of impervious surfaces to have this dense development on such small lots. But one thing that has not been mentioned is the environmental impact on lots of this size, especially in a large area. And I would just like to note that the area of NR3 that would be subject to this, and I'm discounting the part of NR3 that has large apartment developments, but discounting those, the existing neighborhood, whose members we've heard from, and some vacant property, et cetera, it's a total of 100 acres. 100 acres of our city would be under these terms. So also the idea that these would be owner occupied, there's no way right now that we can enforce that unless there were some other approach to this that would allow some sort of comprehensive look at a large development and, you know, require that a certain number of the units be owner occupied. We've done that before. I don't know if we can do that again, but that's something that needs to be considered. Otherwise, a developer will come in here and we will have an all rental new community, which is so contrary to good development practices, because it turns people into renters, and they'll be renters the rest of their lives. That's what's happening now with developers who are constantly.
And you know, that now, to your point, if we have something that comes before us, we can say no. Okay? So to your point, if any type of development, but I want to make sure we get to the questions. If we have no other questions, yes, Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you. Jason, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well, Councilmember.
So Jason knows, and because I was under his study, right, as a planner for this city. And this stormwater question keeps coming up, right? So I want your opinion, Jason. New development, different code of standards as it relates to runoff, right? Are they gonna make it worse or to make it better? Because from my research and knowledge is that a lot of the stormwater issues are because of the older structures. But coming in building something new, right? The code and standards are at a higher level. So will it make it worse?
Yeah. Well, to your point, a lot of 1970s and early 1980s era development was under little to no regulation in terms of stormwater mitigation. And newer development, of course, you've got state laws that dictate it. You've got the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District. And all with model stormwater ordinances for the metro region that most jurisdictions have adopted some form of. So, with those tools in place and modern engineering practices, newer development can better mitigate stormwater. A lot of the older development either didn't have any stormwater controls in place, or if they did, was poorly maintained. I know that during my time here, we had a lot of issues with private stormwater detention facilities that were, part of subdivision developments where they weren't properly maintained. The HOA was either unable to, financially, bear that obligation, or, the HOAs went defunct and there was nobody doing it. And in some cases, I think even DeKalb County had a list of facilities that they were supposed to be maintaining, yet weren't, for one reason or another. So, all those factors combined, the old and the new kind of creates an interesting mix, but the new, if done properly, has the ability to have a lesser impact. Now, with some of the densities that could be experienced with 1,400 square foot lots, that could be a different story, and it will be tougher to create that mitigation through modern stormwater practices.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And you have a question? Okay.
Not a planner. I do read a lot about it. My understanding is the planning trend is towards encouraging more infill development, with smaller lot sizes for both environmental reasons of, decreasing commutes to the job center and also, decrease the cost of housing. Is that correct? That's the general trend in planning across the country?
It's a general trend. Its impact on affordability, depending on what you read, it's had a significant impact. In other places, it's been more modest. But generally speaking, that's a fair assessment.
Okay. Any other questions, or you want to move to the motion? You have a question? Okay.
I'm not sure I'll get this right based on how this is written, but I move to deny amending the zoning code to increase the maximum floor area ratio, reduce the minimum lot size, and increase maximum lot coverage requirements for the NR3 zone, to reduce the minimum lot width and remove side setback requirements for single-family attached dwelling units, townhouses, to increase the maximum building height for the town center district, and to reduce parking requirements for certain dwelling types.
Okay. And is there a second? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to deny, to amend the zoning code to increase the maximum floor area ratio, reduce the minimum lot size, and increase maximum lot coverage requirements for NR3 zone, to reduce the minimum lot width and remove side setback requirements for single-family home attached dwelling units, townhomes, and to increase the maximum building height for the town center TC district, and to reduce parking requirements for certain dwelling types. Is there any further discussion?
I have discussion, but others may also. I know I've spoken a lot.
Okay.
The reason I am have made this motion to deny this is that it's not workable, in my opinion, the way it is. I know that Planning and Zoning had suggested that it go back to a committee, but it needs, this, in my opinion, needs to be stopped and taken off the table. And we need to start, if we're going to have a real discussion, we need to start anew. And that should include extensive citizen input, because even though this is a text amendment, it is the same thing as rezoning a large part of our city. If you look at that map over there, the orange on that map, that's NR3.
Okay.
And so let's start with vigorous community input and go from there. But let's not send something that is so far apart. Even the gentleman here who is responsible, Jason, thank you, has mentioned several things that really aren't supportable about this, like the parking and the fact that 1,400 square foot lots is really to the extreme. So that is why I'm moving to deny. Let's just start over.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? All in favor to deny, to amend the zoning code to increase the maximum floor area ratio, reduce the minimum lot size, and increase maximum lot coverage requirements for the NR3 zone, to reduce the minimum lot width and remove side setback requirements for single-family home attached dwellings, units, townhomes, to increase the maximum building height for the town center TC district, and to reduce parking requirements for certain dwellings types, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so the motion did not pass. So then at this point, is there any other motions on the floor for this?
So I have some discussion before I make a motion, if that's okay. There's been a lot of discussion.
Just go ahead and make the motion. Go ahead and make your motion,
Okay.
Councilman
So
Carroll. That's okay. That's okay. We're gonna deal with that.
Okay, so my motion is to approve the changes to increase the maximum floor area ratio in NR3 from 0.4 to 1, to increase the maximum lot coverage requirements for the NR3 zone for 67% to townhomes and quadplexes, 62% for triplexes, 57% for duplexes, to reduce the minimum lot width, remove side setback retirements for attached townhomes compliant with the fire code, and to increase the maximum building height for the TC district from 75 to 100 feet, and to reduce the parking requirements for cottage homes, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes to 1 home per unit, and to also change the parking code to where it no longer sets both the minimum and maximum, it just set a maximum. And as to the lot coverage, I would set it at 1,400 for townhomes and 2,500 for all other types of homes within the NR3 district.
You got all that
That's
written
my
out?
motion.
You got all that written out for me?
Yes, it's all the same as the original version. The only change is that it's 1,400 for townhomes and 2,500.
Okay, so, all right,
so it's a
okay,
motion to
let's,
amend it.
motion, it's a motion, is there a second? Is there a second? Is there, okay, it's been properly moved and seconded, and can I get all of that, what you said?
Yes, it's the same, everything is the same as what's on the agenda. The only change is that as a compromise, it has 1,400 staying for townhome and 2,500 for non-townhomes within NR3.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So
you want to
I do
make
have
them?
some discussion.
Okay. Okay, calm down. Okay, calm down. I know this. I know we got to go through the process. So let's.
I let everyone else speak. I didn't
Okay,
interrupt
go
anyone else's
ahead.
comments,
Let's
so
go ahead,
hopefully
Councilman.
everyone can afford me the same courtesy. So essentially, this process started a long time ago with the 2017 LCI. The LCI said that we wanted.
Okay, okay. Let him speak. Let him speak.
Next interrupts may have to be removed.
Okay.
There's been too much.
Okay.
But so it starts with the 2017 LCI. The 2017 LCI said that we wanted more different infill development. We wanted more different housing options in NR3. And then again, we had the zoning rewrite that happened in 2021 and 2022. Again, there was a lot of community feedback that a lot of people wanted those options. Not everyone, but a lot of people did. And those options weren't really provided in the zoning rewrite, although it did allow quadplexes in NR3. It didn't change any of the other things that would make that development feasible in NR3, which is part of the reason why we've only seen 2 homes, both single-family homes, built in NR3 in the last 14 years. Because NR3 is the same floor area ratio as NR1 and NR2, even though it allows duplex, triplex, quadplex. It has the same lot coverage requirement. It still has 5,000 square feet homes, which is too large for townhomes. I can get more into detail on that. So we passed the zoning rewrite, and then we started the process with Housing Infrastructure Committee. The Housing Infrastructure Committee met and discussed part of the changes on March 4th, discussed additional changes on May 13th. All of these meetings were properly advertised. All of them were attended by the public. It's interesting to me that Councilwoman Hood now wants to stop all the changes because at the Housing Infrastructure Committee meeting where she discussed it, she actually supported virtually all of these except for the 1,400 square feet. And that's reflected in the minutes, which is available for open records. You'll get those in response to your open records request. So it goes through the process of 2 different Housing Infrastructure Committee meetings. It's also discussed at a council meeting, and then we wait several months for the report to come back. The report does come back. It was put on the September Planning and Zoning meeting that got deferred, and then it got put to the October Planning and Zoning meeting, which again was pushed back due to an advertising error, but it was discussed there. And so this has gone through a very long process. This has been for over 6 months. It's been available for the public to give feedback. They've gone to multiple meetings to give feedback. I know there's never going to be a perfect public feedback process, but I think that there has been more than sufficient in this case. And there's never going to be a solution that everyone agrees with. I know that some people disagree with me, some people agree with me, but the reality is, do we want Clarkston to continue to be a welcoming city for different housing options for people that want to start families here, that want to buy homes here, that want to have different affordable options here? And if we leave it at 5,000 square feet, the reality is that only really works for large single-family homes economically. You can't build a townhome on 5,000 square feet. It's just too much land. It doesn't work economically. And so if you leave the lot size the way it is, if you leave the FAR the way it is, then you may say technically, yes, we may technically allow townhomes in R3, but in reality, they're just not going to be built. So you're not fulfilling your own plan, which has townhomes allowed in R3. And so if you want, and if you've looked at, there's lots of examples of cities. Houston's one example. There's many other cities. The fact is, if you decrease the lot size, you make it more affordable to buy a house. Because when you increase the lot size, what you're doing is you're saying you have to buy more land than you want. Like you have to buy your house plus a vacant lot next to your house. And anytime you require that, you're just going to make that house more expensive. That's just the reality. You have to buy, if you have to buy extra land, it costs more. And so if you're a new family wanting to start out, obviously you want to buy as little land as you can or as you want to. You don't want to be forced to buy extra land. So that's the idea behind decreasing the lot size. And especially that's true for townhomes. You're never going to build a townhome on 5,000 square feet. That just doesn't work economically. That would only be 8 townhomes per acre. You cannot buy an acre of land and afford to build 8 townhomes on it. That's just, any townhome is going to need a variance for 5,000 square feet. You're just not going to have it built. So, but I understand at the same time there's some opposition to 1,400 square feet. You know, there's some desire for compromise. So that's why I'm suggesting as a compromise the 1,400 square feet for just townhomes, which I really believe it is necessary for them. They're not going to be built at the 5,000. But at the same time, I'm willing to go to 2,500 square feet for all the non-townhome types, which would be single family, duplex, triplex, quadplex. And the reason why I picked that is because we just passed an overlay Clemsol, interestingly enough. In Clemsol, the minimum lot size is 2,500 square feet. And so the entire, most of the council, I think, supported that part of the zoning rewrite at least. And in Clemsol, we thought that that was the amount that preserved the neighborhood. So if it's not a townhome, it's 2,500 square feet lot minimum. I still think that's more affordable than 5,000, but it's a compromise, essentially meeting in the middle, people that may be concerned that 1,400 is too small for everything. So that's why I said 1,400 for townhomes, 2,500 for everything else, which would match Clemsol and I think would reach a compromise.
Okay. Can you, I know you said it's in there, can you give me your motion thing for?
Yeah, so the motion is to approve the changes with the one amendment that, well actually there's two amendments, one is just technical. The substantive amendment is to make the 1,400 lot size minimum only apply to townhomes, and there would be a 2,500 foot lot size minimum for single family homes, duplex, triplex, and quadplex. And then the technical amendment is just to say for the townhomes, the change that is in compliance with current fire code, which I think is one of the recommendations in the report, which obviously any townhome development have to comply with fire code anyways. But it's just saying that, you know, none of the changes here would contradict fire code, that they would have to comply with fire code, which, to be honest, it doesn't change. The townhome part, the setback doesn't change, because obviously if the townhome's attached, there's no setback. I mean, that's just the nature of townhomes. If you're attached to another townhome, there's no setback in between you and your neighborhood. You share a wall. So that's all that's changing. It's not a substantive change. And Tucker has also made the exact same change of 18 square foot lot width minimum for townhomes. They passed it last month. You know, a lot of other districts are making these changes just because realistically, townhomes are not 50 feet wide. That product just does not exist in the market. So a lot of these are just technical changes.
Okay. All right, and so with that, is there any further discussion?
Conflict of interest.
Thank you for point of order. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I know there's been a lot of concern on public input in the process. And so I want to share a little bit of my perspective as someone who actually was involved in our latest update to the comprehensive plan. So Councilman Carroll shared a few bits from his perspective on the LCI study, you know, different things. You know, we throw around a lot of acronyms. So the way that city zoning works, and really sort of the large direction of the city, is through a very robust public input process. But it doesn't involve me walking around with a manifesto, sharing my side of the story. It actually involves hiring a third party, paying them quite a bit of money to come up with hopefully a representative picture of what the whole community wants. So back in I believe it was 2021, when we were somewhere in the middle of the process, a lot of our input was only representative of the small subset of the community. It wasn't representative of the diversity, both in zoning, ethnicity, generational diversity in terms of the whole community. And so we really pushed the city, this is actually maybe even before then, before I was on council, to make sure that they were inclusive in the input that they were getting from the community. And there were multiple open houses where this was discussed. We updated both our zoning plan. We paid over $100,000 to do this, again, to make sure that it was an objective picture, that it really was representative of the will of the whole community. And that's what you see reflected in the comprehensive plan update in 2021, which was adopted, and in some of the initial proposals of the zoning rewrite. If you look at the initial public feedback, things that were coming from the community itself. And so a couple things that Councilman Carroll did leave out. Our code doesn't require any of these changes to go before a standing advisory committee. The Housing and Infrastructure Committee is a committee that exists for council to refer items that need a little bit more discussion or initiate items there. But it's actually not any part of our zoning rewrite. And so I want to say those 2 extra meetings were in addition to the standard procedure, which for a text amendment, which what this is, only requires 30 days. It requires 2 council members. They submit basically say, hey, this is what we want. The city manager is required to review it in 30 days. I see some shaking heads. You can look this up in the code. This is in the zoning code. You can email me. I'm happy to provide you the reference for it. And after 30 days, they will send the report back to council. And then it can go, it can go through planning and zoning. Planning and zoning is required to meet legally once every 30 days. All right? So they were given a 90-day extension, or we'll say a 60-day extension if you count the initial 30 from the moment that that text amendment was recommended to give people extra time. And so I just want to point that out. Procedurally, this has gone according to plan. There have been some delays in that for a variety of reasons. That's part of the reason that there was concern on the Halloween meeting being canceled. That meeting legally needed to take place because they had already refused to review applications that were complete earlier before that point and had to reschedule meetings, things like that. So I just want to point that out when we talk about public input. And I know there's disagreement with this. These changes are in alignment with what was requested and recommended, both in our comprehensive plan and in the initial recommendations, with the zoning rewrite. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? And so my only other concern is that just as a reminder, these 3 items were put on by 2 council people, not staff, right? So I want to make sure that's clear from a normal procedural perspective. We would have the planning and zoning meeting. We would have then had this on by staff in terms of putting these items for work session and then for us to have the discussion in terms of the council meeting. That process did not happen that way. And so for that reason, when we had the work session, that's why we didn't have staff and we didn't have the person to do the report because she was gone because she wasn't putting it on the agenda in the first place. So I wanted to make sure that's clear that it wasn't done by staff in terms of that order. So we have this on the motion, and so I'm going to ask Councilman Carroll to reread his motion because there was a bunch on there, and thank you.
That's fine. So
Okay.
it's the same as what's on the agenda. The only change is that, first, the 1,400 square feet lot size minimum only applies to townhomes in NR3. The other types of housing allowed in NR3, single family, duplex, triplex, quadplex, would be at 2,500 square foot minimum. And then the other change is just technical to say that the townhome change is required to comply with fire code, which it would anyways, but that was one of the recommendations in the report. So
Okay.
Those are the only 2 changes. Other than that, it's the same as written in the agenda.
Okay. So the primary change is the 1,400 for townhomes, 2,500 for single-family homes, duplex, quad, tri, and quad. Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion passed. Mr. Quinn, when it comes to me doing a veto, what does it mean in terms of once I do a veto, what in terms of the ability to put it back on the agenda?
You're asking whether the council could propose the same item again? I think I'm going to have to look that one up and get back to you on that. I'm not sure that there's any restriction on that. Okay. I can look it up on Muni Code. I don't know if y'all want to wait for that, but I can kind of raise my hand when I figure it out.
We can talk about that later. I just wanted to make sure in terms of the option for me if I had to do the veto.
Right.
What that
So-
would look like, and just so for the public to understand, if I did do the veto, what it would be in terms of the override of it.
So I can definitely answer that. The it's just a simple majority vote to override the veto. A legislative act doesn't go into effect until the mayor signs it. The mayor has a certain amount of time, which I believe is like a week, 5 days, to enter a veto. So if the mayor exercises that power, then the legislation never becomes effective. The mayor never signs it and instead gives the written veto statement to the city clerk. The council can override a veto with a 3-person vote. 4-person vote. I should check on it and then make sure I get it right. I can look. I'm gonna go ahead and look that up on my.
And I just wanted to
device
know.
here.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which would be item F. And so that would be the public hearing to receive public comments regarding the application to rezone properties located at 911 Mill Avenue, 917 Mill Avenue, 929 Mill Avenue, 935 Mill Avenue from NR1 Low Density Neighborhood District to NR3 High Density Neighborhood District. And so Matt, sorry. Yeah, sorry. No, not our staff. We'll have staff to come up. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So for this one right here, it's REZ 24-10-001. The applicants, Grace Denise Rainey or Gary Rainey, Victor Dwight Rainey, and John Barry Rainey request to rezone their properties located at 911 Mill, 917 Mill, and 929 Mill, and 935 Mill from NR1 Low Density Neighborhood District to NR3. It does appear that this is in line with our comprehensive plan and applied to the character area of traditional neighborhood development. And these areas are designated to nurture traditional neighborhood development patterns and housing types. On this one, the Planning and Zoning Board members recommended approval of the request as presented.
Okay, and so we'll move into the public hearing for this, and that is to receive public comments regarding the applications to rezone properties located at 911 Mill Avenue, 917 Mill Avenue, 929 Mill Avenue, 935 Mill Avenue from NR1 Low Density Network District to NR3 High Density Neighborhood Residential District. So do we have people signed up for this item?
Yes.
Okay, so we will allocate 20 minutes for this, 10 minutes for each side. We'll start with those who are for. If you would like to come up, those who are for the property, and we can allow the applicant to speak for 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Yes.
I found the veto provision of our city charter.
Okay.
And it states that the mayor has 5 days to veto an action of the city council, and that it takes 4 affirmative votes of council members to override the veto.
Thank you. And go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gary Rainey, and I'm representing the Rainey family. I'm not going to go through a lot of what I've done already previously, but I just would love to have the consideration to change our property from NR1 to NR3. So we would have a better possibility of selling the property. I also, I'll give a brief that I gave last time, that it originally started off with a plan for the gateway to Clarkston, and that's where it all started with us. And hoping that everything along Ponce De Leon would be included in a package deal, and then because a lot of that property is also zoned, even behind our properties, is already commercial. so it could be a mixed-use development on that corner. That's what I always envisioned. I thought that would be a good thing for Clarkston. And anyway, so that's where I began, and that's where I'm ending, and I would love the consideration to move forward for our zoning.
Thank you. So for all those who are for this item, if you would stand, everyone that's for it, please come forward.
I support the Rainies in doing this. I'm Debbie. I live across the street from them. They got to sell that property, and it needs to line up with the zoning on the rest of the street. I will never, ever support a 1,400 square foot thing, ever, ever, ever. So, in fact, I want to call the police, but they left, so we couldn't call the police. But I think the game plan for the Rainies, it makes sense. The rest of the houses on that side are NR3, unless en masse they decide to become NR1. So we don't know what the future holds. But for now, I support them. I think it's a good idea. I talked to their real estate person, and it sounded like it made sense. It makes sense for them. So I support it.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a property on Market Walk, but I'm here to support this project. I think this is a perfect property. There's only one tree that I know of. It wouldn't bother the drainage. It's a wonderful opportunity for Clarkston to help put something together that would be the best thing for the Eastern Gateway to Clarkston. Thank you.
Can you state your name, please?
Yes. Oh, Tracy Minnick.
Madam Mayor, I'm Dean Moore, Rayford Trail. The proposal to change the NR3, if this other legislation had passed, I would be not in favor of it. But I am in favor since the rest of that area is NR3. We do look at it as our gateway. There is potential for commercial development. I think most of the neighborhood of NR3 behind it might be better to be rezoned, upzoned from NR3 to NR1 or NR2. Just for general principle. But I'd like to see the city spend some time and actually develop a townhouse ordinance that can be applied throughout different districts of the city that would take into consideration tree canopies. This property doesn't have that issue, but if you're going to reduce the requirements for lot sizes in general throughout the city, then the tree canopy is going to be sacrificed. And that's something that I think that most of us take pride in with the City of Clarkston. We'd like to protect that as much as possible, just for the quality of life in the future for ourselves and our future generations. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for? Okay, for.
So again, my name is Taylor Brooks. I live at 1024 Pecan. I have no problem with this proposal. I think it aligns with the rest of the street. However, I would like to say I'm appalled by the stance that Councilman Carroll has.
Well, this is
I
only,
know it's for this,
just for this.
but if he can do that for that zoning problem, he can do whatever he wants for these zoning problems. This is a democracy. We don't work by decret, okay? Like by decree, sorry. You know, I've been in France too long. So the point is, I have no problem with the NR3 change, but just be prepared for whatever you sell. Whoever you sell to, they can do whatever they want with it after these other changes have passed. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for? Now, those against. Anyone against? Anyone against? Anyone against once? Anyone against twice? Anyone against 3 times? The hearing is closed. Okay. With that, we will now move into G, which is to consider the application to rezone properties located at 911 Mill Avenue, 917 Mill Avenue, 929 Mill Avenue, and 935 Mill Avenue from NR1 low density neighborhood district to NR3 high density neighborhood residential district. And I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Have a motion.
Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
Have a motion to approve the application to rezone properties located at 911 Mail, 917 Mail, 929 Mail Avenue, and 935 Mail Avenue from NR1 Low Density Neighborhood District to NR3 High Density Neighborhood Residential District.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the application to rezone properties located at 911 Mill Avenue, 917 Mill Avenue, 929 Mill Avenue, and 935 Mill Avenue from NR1 Low Density Neighborhood District to NR3 High Density Neighborhood Residential District. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor to approve the application to rezone properties located at 911 Mill Avenue, 917 Mill Avenue, 929 Mill Avenue, and 935 Mill Avenue from NR1 Low Density Neighborhood District to NR3 High Density Neighborhood District, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion passed. Now, we will move to the next public hearing, which is H. Public hearing to receive public comments regarding the application to modify zoning stipulations 19, final plat of the Parkside subdivision to allow park.
I don't think that you heard me abstain.
You didn't say anything.
You didn't?
You went.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't get it in fast enough.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. So
can
what
we
did
correct the record?
What did you say? What were yours?
I was going to say abstain.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
I did pause, and that's my fault.
Okay, all right, we got your abstention. Okay, thank you. So we will now move to the public hearing for us to receive public comments regarding the application to modify zoning stipulations number 19, final plot of the Parkside subdivision to allow carports or garages. So, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So on this item here, the developer has decided to go with an enclosed garage design as opposed to a carport design. And we did ask him to come back for this, just to make sure he's meeting the intent of having the one guest parking spot, my apologies. So we're asking to change it or garage, so the enclosed garage is counted, since the 28 lots remaining will technically not have a carport.
Okay. All right, and so with that, we will open it up for a public hearing. I'll just have 10 minutes. Those who are for, please come up for both sides.
I'll be real quick on this. I don't know if anyone has toured the community, but I went to, I'm a broker myself.
Oh, and state your name again.
Oh, Matthew Biggers, 1061 Jolly. The houses were issued certificates of occupancy with garages. So it's kind of, I'm kind of confused on why it's even a discussion, because they were built with garages. I don't even know why language zoning conditions were introduced to require a carport, because I have never ever seen that in any municipality ever in Georgia or Florida or Oklahoma. It's just not what we do anymore. But they have garages. They were issued certificate of occupancies with garages. So to me, it's just continuing what was already approved by DeKalb and the city. That's all.
Thank you. And those four.
Just for the fun of it, I want to say you can leave the garage door open and it's carport, right?
Okay, and state your
Chris
name.
Becker.
All right, thank you. And state your name again. Go, Chris.
Oh, I said Chris Becker, but I kind of splurted it. Blech. Chris Becker, Pecan Street.
All right. Thank you.
Comedian will sit down.
Okay, thank you. Anyone against? Anyone against? Anyone against? And anyone against? So we'll close the public hearing. We'll move to I, which is to consider an application to modify zoning stipulations number 19, final plat of the Parkside subdivision to allow carports or garages. So at this time, I'll take a motion for this item.
I have a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve the application to modify zoning stipulations number 19, plat of the Parkside subdivision to allow carports or garages.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve an application to modify zoning stipulations number 19, final plaque of the Parkside subdivision to allow carports or garages. Is there any discussion? You ready for the question? Just so you know, there was about 23 different stipulations with this property.
They brought them to the council.
And they brought those with the council, and so this was a while ago. And then there were variances on top of this. So just FYI for everyone. So you ready for the question? All in favor to approve the application to modify zoning stipulations number 19, the final plaque of the Parkside subdivision to allow carports or garages, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now, to J, which is to consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 2 of the City Code concerning City Council meetings, and that's Vice Mayor Johnson and Councilwoman Hood.
This was something we worked on since 2019, and we finally got some verbiage together, so we're just putting it into motion at this time. Ms. Hood, do you have anything to add? We made, the city attorney made all of the required modifications. Did everybody have a chance to look at those?
And I'll allow the city attorney to speak.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that at the work session, we had a group of consensus changes, and I made those and called them option A. Then we had an additional change with regard to presentations, basically saying that they had to relate to a business item. That was option B. And then Councilmember Hood made some small edits to option A, which were basically to not say the term standing advisory committee, but instead just generic small c committee. That's option C. So option C is substantively the same as option A. It's been updated per Ms. Hood's request. And option B is pretty much the same with one exception, which is Councilmember Bell's proposal that presentations be limited to topics germane to an action item.
Okay.
So I would recommend that a motion to approve one of those simply identify option A, B, or C for approval, and they're all before you for that purpose.
Okay. Yes.
On D, this is, I think it's 2.25 D. It says that under the mayor and council reports, this is not a time for discussion by or among council members of council business. I think that should just say discussion among council members of council business. It's obviously during our reports, a lot of times we do discuss council business, you know, infrastructure meetings, things like that. So I think it's not discussion among the council members. I agree, that's not what reports are for, but there can be discussion of council business. So I would just scratch the by or and just say it's not a time for discussion among council members of council business.
Okay. Let me make sure I get that. Okay.
So whoever makes the motion,
Yeah,
I would
and then-
recommend that change.
And so we.
If you want my vote. If you
Yeah,
don't.
you want, okay, thank you, Councilman Carroll. And just the other piece is just, I think it's okay, because if we said from a free speech, to allow presentations or whatever, so just do whatever y'all want to do. So I'm looking for a motion.
I move to adopt version C with Council Member Carroll's change. And I couldn't keep up with you, Councilmember Carroll, when you
It's just
made
scratching
that.
out the words by or on
And-
2.25D.
And what page is that?
It's on the second page.
Second page.
You see D
Oh,
towards the
by
top, second
or
page.
among, okay. So we're taking out or among.
Or by, or you're taking out by or, you're leaving among. Because
Okay.
it's fine to not say you, obviously
Okay.
council members shouldn't have discussion among themselves, like we shouldn't have a back and forth during the reports.
Okay. So then that would read, mayor and council member reports. This is not a time for discussion among council members of council business.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve option C with the noted change, with the remove among?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Can somebody, Stephen, can you advise me what option C was again?
Yes. Option C includes all the changes that were discussed at the work session, except restricting presentations to matters that are anticipated to be acted on by the council. And it removes the term standing advisory committee and replaces it with just simply committee.
Any other discussion?
And then just to further clarify, I'm assuming option C is the one that we're holding in front of us with a suggested change.
Option C says version C on the top
Draft C.
left, or yeah, draft C if you're looking at the red line version, or version C if you're looking at the clean version. Same text.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? Okay. All those in favor of option C with the noted change to remove among, say aye.
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 Okay. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And motion passed. Okay, thank you. We'll move to number K, which is to consider a resolution to regulate the utilization of the city attorney's services by the council members, and that is also Councilwoman Hood and Vice Mayor Johnson.
Ms. Hood. Ms. Hood.
Yes.
What's your item?
I know I can't find the, oh, here it is. Okay. I can't find the text for that. Can you read that for us?
Okay.
Yeah, basically it's just that you shouldn't consult with the city attorney unless it's going to take less than 15 minutes, or it involves a matter of ethics or conflict of interest without first going to the city manager. My only recommended change is changing 15 to 12, but we can leave it.
Okay, I found it.
Okay. So we just want to make sure we notify the city,
Yes.
city manager that we're using
Right.
city attorney.
Council members should consult with the city manager before communicating directly with the city attorney. Council members need not consult with the city manager first when the matter can be discussed with the attorney in 15 minutes or less. When the council member seeks advice about complying with the code of ethics, or when the matter is a personnel matter related to the city manager. In any circumstance where an elected official believes that they may have a potential conflict of interest or other matters related to the code of ethics, such official is encouraged to consult directly with the city attorney for advice or written opinion. City manager may also request advice or an opinion from the city attorney regarding an elected official's potential conflict of interest on matters related to city business.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion for this item.
Have a motion.
Yes.
I have a motion to approve a resolution to regulate the utilization of the city attorney's services by city council members.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve a resolution to regulate the utilization of the city attorney services by the council members. Is there any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor to approve a resolution to regulate the utilization of the city attorney services by the council members say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. We'll read number 11, which is consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 3 of the City Code concerning the Code of Ethics to prohibit cash advances of compensation to elected officials. Councilwoman Hood.
Yes. Section 1 is new section 2-55. Neither the mayor nor any council member shall request nor accept a cash advance of their compensation paid by the city.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the amendment to Chapter 2, Article 3, City Code concerning the Code of Ethics to prohibit cash advances of compensation to elected officials.
Second.
It's been, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 3 of the City Code concerning the Code of Ethics to prohibit cash advances of compensation to elected officials. Is there any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 3 of the City Code concerning the Code of Ethics to prohibit cash advances of compensation to elected officials, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. I gotta find them.
6-0.
Yeah, okay. Boy.
City adjournment.